Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Side Story Chapter 23 One Horn 8. In fact, as Yin Wu stated at the beginning, he had no desire to fight with the martial king. No matter how great the martial king was, since he had not achieved exuviation and transcendence, he would be no match for Yin Wu. Moreover, as long as he was subordinated to this world and subjected to the restrictions of all entities within a universe, the martial king could not surpass Yin Wu. However, Yin Wu did not want to see the others see the martial king being defeated, so Yin Wu had avoided conflict as much as possible. Still, there was one thing that Yin Wu had overlooked about his own resolve. I'm curious. After all, before becoming the Black King, Yin Wu was a martial artist by trade. Although he learned martial arts to avenge his younger brother, he found the craft fun, so he was able to develop to where he was now. Moreover, after the martial king was annihilated, Yin Wu used to play numerous imaginative battles with the martial king in his mind. As far as he knew, the strongest being in the world of this tower was the martial king. Perhaps that was why a lingering thought stuck in Yin Wu's mind. If only his real master had remained alive, if Yin Wu had a chance to compete with him in martial arts, Yin Wu would be able to know where he stood in terms of martial arts ability. What would the result have been? Master. Rumble. Yin Wu lightly waved his hand in the air, then he erected a light pillar that stretched from the ground to the sky. A swarm of lights soared up into the air with a colossal roar, seemingly shattering the space. It was such a dazzling sight that it seemed as if a star had fallen from the sky. However, the martial king did not so much as bat an eyelid. At the same time, a strange thing occurred. Two voices could be heard very clearly, despite the many roars that resounded in succession around them. They were probably still able to clearly communicate because the two had reached a point where they were no longer restricted by space. Why are you calling me suddenly? What, are you going to ask me to go easy on you? Thinking this was nonsense, the martial king snorted and avoided the pillar of light. He rushed towards Yin Wu with a single breath. Raising his hand high into the air, the martial king made a slashing move. However, unlike the simple movement of his hand, the attack was anything but simple and light. Break heaven. While chasing after Xiaohao Jintian, the martial king had created his own martial art, the 8 extreme fists. Break heaven was the first of the 8 fists, and it was imbued within the martial king's current attack. Yin Wu had personally seen the move cut the sun in half in the past. If he were to be hit by the attack, his head would be split in half. Sensing danger, Yin Wu contorted his body to the side to avoid the oncoming attack. However, the word, heaven, in Break Heaven did not simply mean the sky. It included the physical rules surrounding the space and the providence of the world beyond it. Break Heaven contained the power to cut off all these principles. In fact, beyond the torn space, Yin Wu could see idea rapidly disintegrating and cracks spreading in all directions. You're so good at doing such unspeakable things. Yin Wu was careful and mindful of the attack. He did not take it lightly. If he were to be hit by the attack, he would get hurt. This was because his true body, not just the one that he used to descend to this world, would be affected by the attack. Thus, it was natural that Yin Wu felt a cool tingle run up his spine. Still, Yin Wu could not help a smile from forming on his lips. This was the true power of the martial king. It was completely different from the technique that Yin Wu had seen in his previous battles with the martial king. The martial king was doing his best, he was going all out. This meant that he had begun to regard his disciple as an equal. Such a fact made Yin Wu very happy. Having run in circles, but finally, he gained the recognition he long sought after from his master. It was a very precious personal joy that could be replaced with anything else. Of course, this did not mean that Yin Wu would commit the mistake of being swayed by his emotions. He did not want to waste this precious opportunity, and he knew very well that, if there was one thing he had neglected, he had not been polite to his master. Therefore, Yin Wu wanted to show the martial king the martial arts that he had accumulated so far. He could not draw out all his power, as the tower would collapse. However, it was possible to extract a singular part of a legend and implement it in the form of an ideology. Most of your powers are locked. The legend of the Black King has fallen into a light sleep. Data related to martial arts is loading. Boom, 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 whoosh. Yi and Wu and the Martial King exchanged blows at a fast pace. Their attacks and counters were at a speed that could not be followed by an ordinary person's eyesight. Though they had spent their entire lives practicing martial arts, even the tribe members found it impossible to follow the progression of attacks. Yi and Wu could not be happier with the pain that rang out every time he bumped into the Martial King's limbs. His mind had been released. It felt like all the senses that had been dormant since Yi and Wu began to be recognized by the world had been newly awakened. The Martial King forcibly pulled out every drop of his martial arts prowess. Thanks to this, Yi and Wu was able to clearly see the shape of the Martial King's martial arts. Yi and Wu was able to peer into the Martial King's past and observe the latent potential within the Martial King. It was like a lesson for Yi and Wu. The ideas and theories that he had of certain martial art principles were cleared away in an instant. Bam! Yi and Wu's movements, which seemed completely different, soon became very similar to that of the Martial King's. If the Martial King stretched out his hand, Yi and Wu would follow suit and strike with the same attack. If the Martial King kicked with his leg, Yi and Wu would also use his leg in the same way to interrupt the attack. It was as if a mirror had been placed between the two. At this moment, Yi and Wu was completely engrossed in the martial arts he practiced and the martial arts the Martial King was showing. However, the Martial King felt a little different. Surprisingly, the Martial King continued to smile leisurely even as he was bumping into Yi and Wu with all his might. Not only that, but he also had the wherewithal to joke around. He was not pretending to be strong. This was just the beginning. Yi and Wu also smiled, expressing utter bliss. Surely, you don't think I'd come all the way here and ask you to go easy on me, right? Then, I am speaking for Adora's sake. The Martial King frowned. What nonsense are you talking about? After I get married, Master will have cute grandchildren. Wouldn't it be a bit embarrassing if you greet your grandchildren with a few missing teeth during the holidays? HMPF. Yi and Wu continued to pour out provocation after provocation. The Martial King was not amused. Though Yi and Wu had initially joked around to rile him up, now, it was getting to the point of dragging the Martial King's entire image down. Disciple, has your bad temper gotten even nastier? Your every word is filled with such poison. Well, I haven't thought about that. But do you know something? What? Before, there were a lot of things I wanted to say to you, but I suppressed those urges. Now, it's all just exploding out. So, you feel comfortable enough to speak freely now, huh? Whoosh. The Martial King fell silent for a moment. The offensive, which had been continually coming out like water falling from a waterfall, abruptly stopped. Suddenly everything fell silent, as if a mute button had been pressed. Just a moment ago, the loud noises were so great that one would have thought one's hearing might have been lost forever. Though it fell quiet, Yi and Wu knew that this was just the calm before the storm. Thus, he mentally prepared for what was to come. Yi and Wu mirrored the Martial King's next move. Actually, it was not an exact mirroring. Until now, Yi and Wu had focused on bringing out his own martial arts senses from copying the Martial King's moves, but now, Yi and Wu had reached a level where he now wanted to organize and refine those martial art principles. Thus he brought out the only martial arts principle that he had created, 8 extremes of sword thunder. Crackle, black and red flames jumped out like sparks from the tip of his index finger. Yi and Wu clenched his fists with only the index and middle fingers open. This was finger sword art, a method that Yi and Wu had created to replace a sword when there was no sword in his hand. Since Vigrid was the only sword that Yi and Wu found suitable for his hands, Yi and Wu had created this method to replace Vigrid when he did not have it in his possession, as Yi and Wu had no plan to utilize any other sword. Crackle, the lightning started sparking all over the place. Yi and Wu crossed his arms as he held his finger sword. The world was engulfed in darkness by an explosion of power that was incomparable to what the Monkey King's exuviate had once shown. Using the authority of the super administrator to completely separate the surrounding space from the tower. However, before detonating the sword thunder, Yi and Wu cut off the space where he and the Martial King were fighting from the outside world. He did not want the One-Horned Tribe's village to be damaged. Rumble, will Master be able to stop this attack? Yi and Wu thought that the Martial King would be able to parry the sword thunder strike. The Martial King was a being who led Asgard to destruction, even while he was under the influence of Gaia's curse. Thus, Yin Wu was confident that his master would be able to block his attack. As expected. Boom, boom. The moment the martial king stepped on the ground, waves spread out in concentric circles, shaking the surrounding area violently. The sword thunder strikes that were flying towards him disappeared midair. While neutralizing the attack, the martial king had sent out his own crushing attack. On the surface, the attack looked like a simple stab, but in Yin Wu's eyes, the oncoming attack looked like a ferocious beast with its teeth angrily exposed. Yin Wu was surprised. Although he expected the martial king to parry the sword thunder strike without much difficulty, his master had done so with utter ease. Moreover, using the crushing skill with his left hand, the martial king seemed to have increased his power by swallowing up the remaining energy left by the first extreme sword thunder strike. Seeing this, Yin Wu turned his finger sword in another direction and started his second extreme sword thunder strike. It was an attack equivalent to twice the power of the first extreme. With this attack, Yin Wu felt confident that crushing would no longer be a viable counter for the martial king. Boom. However, it seemed that Yin Wu had been mistaken. Even with the second extreme, the power of crushing did not diminish, let alone the speed, so Yin Wu was once again surprised. He soon unloaded with third and fourth extreme attacks in succession. Boom, boom, whoosh. Yin Wu was only able to neutralize crushing once he threw out the fifth extreme. At that moment, Yin Wu felt an eerie feeling. Even if most of his powers had been locked, a power level of the fifth extreme was enough to shake Asgard to its foundations, but how was the martial king able to? Before Yin Wu could complete his thoughts. If you turn an eye during a fight, you know you'll get hurt, right? The martial king suddenly appeared behind Yin Wu and smiled coldly. Were my senses fooled? Yin Wu opened his eyes wide and quickly turned his body. His finger sword flared and crackled with lightning. The sixth extreme was enough to collapse an entire stage, nay, it would be able to cause a significant crack on the tower. Boom. The martial king did not avoid the explosion. Rather, he reached out with his hand. He pierced through the lightning without hesitation and grabbed Yin Wu's right wrist. Yin Wu would be on the losing end of this fight if he had his wrist caught. In order to ward off the martial king's hand, Yin Wu used the blade of his relatively free left hand to stab down on the martial king's hand. However, rather than avoid the attack, the martial king pushed himself closer to Yin Wu, stubbornly digging into Yin Wu's side. Boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, the hands and arms of the two people got entangled, as limbs started colliding all over the place. Then, when Yin Wu detonated another sword thunder strike, the martial king released all the magic energy in his body at once, creating a self-defense force and repelling Yin Wu's offensive attack. Boom, rumble, rumble, crackle. The flames surrounding the two soared high into the air before swirling around like a tornado and disappearing. It was a true battle, not a spar. Yin Wu instantly understood something. Master is still making progress. The martial king's attack a moment ago would have overpowered the previous emperor-level martial king who had driven Asgard to their end many years ago. Though the martial king was showing signs of struggle, he was still able to repel Yin Wu's attack. How could this be possible? The martial king in front of Yin Wu was the martial king, but he was also not the martial king. The existence in front of him was an imperfect existence. Nevertheless, the martial king persevered, and soon, he devised a counterattack. The counterattack was something Yin Wu had seen once before. On the 21st floor. It was the same attack the martial king's copy had used in the Shadow Dojo. Although the martial king in the Shadow Dojo was just composed of past data within the tower's system, the martial king copy had exhibited signs of transcending existing restrictions and conditions from its existing data. Such was the case here as well. At this very moment, the martial king was getting stronger at a very fast rate. An imperfect being, what did that mean? In the end, he was still the martial king, the king of martial arts. He was overcoming all the restrictions and limitations that should have been placed on him. He was born with so many talents that he could not possibly have been immortal, but those innate talents had been forcefully suppressed by an immovable wall, Alpharon. The martial king's potential was only allowed to explode because he met a stimulant named Yin Wu. Having met a being greater than Alpharon, the martial king was starting to open his eyes. His past common sense and worldview, which had set Alpharon as an existence that could not be overcome, collapsed at once, and as he acquired a new perspective, his innate talents were also expanding at an exponential rate. It was like how Yin Wu was bringing out his martial art achievements while fighting against the martial king. The martial king was expanding his achievements, which had previously been suppressed, while fighting with Yin Wu. If he had been born in a different world, this would have likely been his true image. Whoosh, 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 player, Nyu, is changing. Escape, trance, rising in the world, reaching one's top line, nirvana. All these expressions fit the description for what the Martial King was currently achieving. The Martial King was immersed in a form of trance as he entered a completely different world. That's why Yi and Wu was able to intuitively realize what position he should take. Originally, the purpose would have been to compete using martial arts, but this only suited the Martial King's position. If Yi and Wu were to happen to lose, he thought he may truly lose his mind at least. This was what Yi and Wu thought. People with talent, tisk. Some beings lived life overcoming hardship after hardship to acquire what they needed while others were born with a silver spoon, or few, in their mouth. Yi and Wu smiled brightly, spread his hands wide, and covered the Martial King. The 8th Extreme of Rumble. Side Story Chapter 24 One Horn 9. However, the 8th Extreme Sword Thunder Strike did not only contain the principles of the 8 extremes of Sword Thunder. It also contained the principles of the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword. It was what Yi and Wu utilized when he tore down the tower, and he had completed it after repeating countless mistakes in the darkness. Slip. Yi and Wu slowly moved his finger sword downward. It was so slow that it would make any observer yawn. Moreover, it seemed as if time had slowed down. However, this was just what it seemed. The reality was that nothing had changed. The Martial King remained motionless while Yi and Wu's fingers moved downwards atop his head. From the movement, the Martial King saw another universe within. Life and death, positive and negative, light and darkness, fire and water, above and below, left and right. He saw opposite properties, like two sides of a coin, but they were also inseparable. Tai Chi was the mixing of two opposing forces and turning them around, and bright Pengu was the act of breaking free from this cycle. The realization of the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword started from there. One must throw away the preconceived notions one had and escape from the overarching providence by entangling oneself from the superstructure. However, despite his achievements and realization, the Martial King had not been able to obtain the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword until the end because his very existence was completely entangled in providence. It was a limitation that one had since birth, and it was also a weakness that every existence possessed. Even though Yi and Wu knew this, he hoped he could provide the Martial King with the hope of one day breaking through and acquiring the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword principle. The Martial King's attention was completely captured. This was the best time to get a clue, while he was immensely focused and wandering in the swamp of enlightenment. Of course, in the end, the Martial King may never be able to attain the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword. It may remain forever as just a seed in his heart, or it may just pass by his consciousness like an afterimage. However, Yi and Wu had no doubts that the Martial King would succeed at one time or another. This was because he knew that the Martial King was a monster. That monster-like quality goes for this version of my master as well. Just as expected, Yi and Wu could see the various brilliant lights flickering within the Martial King's eyes. Those lights flickered repeatedly, just as a wildly burning star breaks down to become a nebula and mixes with other nebulae to form a new star. The epiphanies and enlightenment that the Martial King was obtaining twinkled like stars. They would soon collapse and be re-established. Enlightenment was the light, and the light was the star. And that light had escaped the Martial King's eyes and was now radiating from his body. Whoosh, like fine snow falling, particles of light rose and sank downwards. It was similar to, but different from, the light that transcendent beings usually emanated. The light distribution of the other transcendent beings had a solemn quality, but his master's light distribution seemed dazzling and warm. Yi and Wu knew, if his master's light were to ever burn wildly with anger, it would become a huge flame that would engulf the world. The sun from afar was very beautiful and warm, but when anything got close, it disintegrated, disappearing without a trace. The Martial King was becoming such a being. Less than star, greater than. This was what Yi and Wu wanted to call the Martial King. God, demon, giant, draconic. The Martial King was walking down a path that was entirely different from those beings. Dang, Yi and Wu could not help but smile when he saw this. You really do have a knack at doing absurd things. Although Yi and Wu had only shown a principle, the Martial King was able to gain enlightenment, and based on that, he would probably be able to find a new path towards exuviation and transcendence. Yi and Wu thought that this was great. And for that reason, he had no choice but to acknowledge the Martial King. His master had essentially raised him and was the father of his one and only wife. As Yi and Wu was having such thoughts, boom. The eighth extreme of sword thunder strike covered the starlight that the less than star greater than proudly emanated, and the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword swept the space. What was that? What's going on? Who won? Damn it, I feel so dizzy. Please tell me the results. The members of the tribe, who were watching the match between Yi and Wu and the martial king, grew restless. They had been observing a fierce battle that they could barely keep up with, and then a barrier had suddenly appeared around the two combatants. However, at some point, only flickering lights could be seen. Even so, the tribe members who were quite talented burst into admiration as they quickly followed the traces of the two combatants. It was exactly what they had hoped for. Not to mention the martial king, Yi and Wu exhibited a power level and skill set that rivaled, if not surpassing, the martial king. Moreover, as they continued to observe the battle, they each gained a sense of enlightenment on their own path. In other words, their eyes had been opened. Then, Yi and Wu came out with the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword. All the members of the tribe jumped up from their seats. Adora also jumped up in surprise. It was the overbearing and seemingly immovable wall that she so desperately wanted to break through but never could. The essence of what the tribe had been trying to overcome for hundreds of years was being exhibited by Yi and Wu. And then, an explosion. A swarm of lights filled the inside of the barrier, and the subsequent harsh vibrations even reached the observers. The barrier shook violently as if it would break at any moment. Some of the tribe members tried to approach the barrier, fearing that something wrong may have happened within. Everyone, clear away from the barrier. The head elder hastily blocked his tribe members' approach. If the barrier exploded, a crisis would befall the entire tower, as well as their village. Everything might be blown away. Even though the attacks had been contained within the barrier, the aftershock forces felt outside the barrier were strong enough to make one's hair stand upright. Then, suddenly, the barrier disappeared. The collection of lights, which seemed to want to explode at any moment, faded away, and instead, only the two, Yi and Wu and the martial king, appeared. Did they really fight properly? Didn't we all see the same thing? How come they both look okay? The members of the tribe widened their eyes as they looked at the two. Even though the two had obviously been in a fierce battle, the two of them stood without showing any signs of being greatly exhausted, let alone injured. Rather, the martial king had a cheerful grin on his face. It was a face that seemed to suggest that he had realized something. There was warmth in his gaze as he looked at Yi and Wu. Quite good. The martial king no longer emanated the bright halo of light that Yi and Wu referred to as starlight. This was because the martial king had used up all the light to parry the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword strike. You've grown a lot. Drip. In an instant, the martial king, who had been smiling and laughing heartily, collapsed onto the ground with blood dripping from the side of his lip. Plop. When the powerless sound rang out, everyone fell into a long silence. It was the first time anyone had seen the martial king fall onto the ground. Up to now, the martial king had always been a supreme figure who had never been defeated within the tribe. It was shocking for every member of the tribe as it shattered all of their common sense. Wow, nice. Finally, the chieftain has fallen. Let's go. At the same time, the tribe members felt a collective exhilarating feeling after seeing their evil chieftain, who had tormented them so badly, collapse. They felt a strong vicarious satisfaction through Yi and Wu, who had defeated their monster-like chieftain in their stead. Cheer. The village shook with cheers. You're coming back as soon as you can, right? I really am. Don't worry. Yi and Wu looked at himself with a little pity. He smiled bitterly as he looked at Adora, who was looking at him with concern. Yi and Wu was able to feel the torment and pain that Adora had suffered while waiting for him all this time. Thus, Yi and Wu reached out with his hand and gently stroked Adora's purple hair. Like a cat savoring another's touch, Adora's face grew languid as she took it all in. In your perspective, I'll only be disappearing for a very short time. You'll see me back in no time. Yi and Wu was about to turn the wheel to a time where he could visit his parents, Kronos and Rhea. He needed to bring the two of them to the parent meet and greet event. And although he did not say anything to Adora, when he had time, he was thinking about looking for the martial king's remaining pieces in his spare time. The present martial king was still incomplete. Yi and Wu had somehow managed to resurrect him with the omnipotence he possessed, but he was not sure how long this version of the martial king would last. The martial king was like a brittle glass bowl that could break and spill what it contained at any moment. Fortunately, once the martial king was able to give off his own light and became a transcendent less than star greater than, His identity was completely established and imprinted into an idea, so there was no need to worry about the martial king disappearing for the time being. But the sooner I resolve everything, the better. In the end, an imperfect existence was just that, imperfect. The martial king was aware of this fact, which led Yin Wu to become more in awe at how the martial king was taking everything in stride. If he were in his master's position, would he be that calm? Yin Wu recalled wandering in the darkness for what seemed like an eternity, so he appreciated the martial king's attitude even more. Well, he's also not a stranger. A slight smile crept onto Yin Wu's lips. Family. The martial king was now part of Yin Wu's family. In the social, outer world, the martial king was his teacher, and publicly, his master was an expert martial artist. But to Yin Wu, he would now become his father. And helping his father was the right thing to do as a son. I wish you'd go after father awakes. Adora did not want to let go of Yin Wu. She spoke with a voice full of regret as she grabbed Yin Wu's hem. Yin Wu hugged Adora. What do you think he'll say when he wakes up and sees me? Having said that, Adora could not respond. As Yin Wu mentioned, if the martial king woke up and saw Yin Wu, her father would probably want to go another round. He would probably keep fighting until he got the match he wanted. Adora knew that her father would do so. In the end, it was as if Yin Wu was running away while the martial king passed out. Ah, Adora let out a long sigh. Even now, her father was grabbing onto her ankles. However, understanding this and truly being sad were two different things. Adora groaned and pouted her lips. Really you have to come back soon. I will. Yin Wu smiled lightly and hugged Adora tighter. The wheel is turning and fast forwarding. Yin Wu quietly disappeared from the spot. Adora was left all alone. She sighed once more. The martial king, who was lying in bed, slowly opened his eyes. The moment his eyes opened, he left. The martial king knew that Yin Wu would leave while he was asleep. However, he did not bother to catch his disciple. As Yin Wu said, his master would want to hold him down persistently, asking for another match. However, the martial king could not do what he truly wanted, as he knew what lay in front of Yin Wu. The martial king slowly raised his hands, which were filled with hard calluses. His hands, which were much larger than the other tribe members, was proof of how much training he had done and how strong his enemies were when he defeated them. For the martial king, who preferred to fight head-on by bumping bodies with his opponent without using any special weapons, his two hands were his sword and his shield. And a little while ago, it was also a hand that had finally competed with a disciple who surpassed his master. It was his life and his path. It represented his achievements. It was the result of everything that comprised him. Thus, the martial king always loved his two hands. Even if he was given another heavenly or divine treasure, he would not trade away his two hands. All the memories were vividly contained within them. They were completely and wholly his. When he became a less than star greater than the ecstasy he felt when he saw the truth of the bright Tai Chi Pengu sword was also clearly real. However, the thought that maybe everything he observed was just an illusion and that it might be fake made him a bit upset. Even though all his memories were clear and vivid, the thought that they might have all been manipulated twisted his mind. He felt like it was unfair. Hey, wife, open hollow corner bracket close hollow corner bracket. Can you believe it? Open hollow corner bracket stop. I lost. Ha ha ha. Open hollow corner bracket. Do you know how many times you've said that already? I mean, it feels really weird. I feel perfectly fine here. Open hollow corner bracket. Any passing person would probably think you're drunk. Why are you repeating the same words over and over? To think, I'm an illusion that doesn't really exist. Open hollow corner bracket close hollow corner bracket. The martial king let out a long sigh as he looked up at the ceiling. The truth that Yin Wu had told him flashed through his mind. Master. Yin Wu's voice was deeply subdued when he spoke these lines. I did unto you what you did with Nocturne. The martial king here was not the real martial king. He was just an existence made up of traces his original self had left behind. He was a shadow. Yin Wu had brought him out from the 21st floor. Side story chapter 25 One Horn 10. Something similar to what I did. The martial king did not say anything for a long time after hearing Yin Wu's explanation. Later, he came to understand what Yin Wu meant. The psychic medium, never thinking of such a solution, had remained silent as well. When he finally opened his mouth to speak, the martial king could tell that his voice was trembling. He had pretended to be okay until now. He, too, had inevitably been shaken by Yin Wu's explanation. However, he was not agitated by his existence. It was because of Nocturne. It was because of the wounds Nocturne had suffered. Nocturne's origin was something that the Martial King wanted to hide no matter what. Or perhaps, it was the greatest mistake that the Martial King regretted. The fact that his disciple found out about his mistakes, which he had made while he was half crazy due to resentment against Alpharaon, made his heart throb. He felt shame towards Yi and Wu, and he felt sorry for Nocturne. Nocturne eventually found out about his true identity, and his intense resentment had driven him to annihilate the Martial King, who could not fathom a guess on the extent of Nocturne's resentment. Yes, I brought the shadow that Master left in the Shadow Dojo, on the 21st floor. And I backed up the records and data that were engraved on idea and overlaid it into this world's data. Yi and Wu could be called the ruler of the entire world. Since all the foundations of this universe were derived from the Black King's dream, it was not difficult for Yi and Wu to deal with idea. Thus, he succeeded in finding all the records and data left behind by the Martial King. The records and data had been deleted from the Chenggong library once he was annihilated, but the traces left in the idea did not completely disappear. Of course, that data was corrupted and fragmented all over the place due to his annihilation. Still, Yi and Wu was able to activate his power of omniscience, gather all the information, convert it into data, and plant it all in the Martial King's illusion. It was the closest version of the Martial King that existed in this time period, as it was created during this time period from the original source. This was a being who thinks the same, and acts the same. Even he recognized himself as the original Martial King. It could be understood as the rebirth of thoughts onto a relatively blank canvas. Yi and Wu had come up with the idea after learning how the Martial King pulled out the records of Alpharaon Vivasvat, which Vivasvat had left on the 21st floor, which was the same mechanism as how Cha Jung-woo left his consciousness on the pocket watch. If there was a slight difference, it would be that Cha Jung-woo's vestige thought form existed only in the pocket watch, limiting his movements, while the Martial King was relatively freer. Of course, these new external factors may ultimately cause the Martial King's demise, so he would have to consider exuviation and transcendence to stop any issues from arising. Once he reached that level, his existence would be more established and firmer. The Martial King never thought that he would become a transcendent in a completely different form, something called a less than star greater than. A vestige form, but if I dig into it, it's probably not a stable form. It's not the vestige thoughts that were left from my original existence, but data that was compiled from various sources. The Martial King predicted that, even if he achieved transcendence, his existence would be very insecure. In the end, the root of his existence lay in the soul. Without a soul, would he not be just an empty doll? To put it simply, he was essentially a mechanical device created by Yi and Wu. No matter how much effort Yi and Wu had expended in creating his existence, it was bound to be unstable. This was the Martial King's current state. Regarding this, Yi and Wu had said, "So, I'm planning on recreating Master's soul." "My soul, how do you recreate something that has been annihilated?" "You're planning on creating one?" "I'm sure I can. I'll try and make a soul as close to the one you possessed originally. It should essentially be the same." "But that wouldn't be the true me." "Yeah, it would be remarkably similar, but essentially different." "Then, the good news is, or at least fortunately Master's soul wasn't completely annihilated." As the Martial King made a puzzled look, Yi and Wu explained in a serious tone of voice. "Your soul wasn't completely annihilated. It became fragmented into pieces." "But that wouldn't." "No, your case is different. Your soul obtained the level of Emperor, so your soul still exists, albeit in fragments." Unable to understand Yi and Wu's explanation, the Martial King tilted his head. He lacked knowledge related to metaphysics, as he had concentrated on martial arts all his life. He was able to follow Yi and Wu's explanation this far thanks to his deep awareness of the world, but beyond that, it was very unfamiliar territory. However, the psychic medium was different. She dealt with metaphysics all her life, and she was a wise philosopher who had peered into the deepest secrets of the world. "You're alluding to the division of the worlds through the world line." "Yes, I'm sure when Jung-woo created it, he wasn't thinking of this use. Regardless, the divisions are happening even as we speak. Parallel and multiple universes, there are so many that I can't even count them." Quote. In the parallel and multiple universes, there are probably many different versions of the Martial King. Quote. The Martial King tilted his head with his arms crossed. He was belatedly starting to understand the meaning of division. The fragments of his soul, which had attained an emperor level, had been copied within the various other parallel and multiple universes after the implementation of the world line. Hence, pieces of his soul existed in every single iteration of these parallel and multiple universes. I need to gather all those pieces and unify them together. If I can do that, though I may not be able to give you the emperor-level soul that you attained in the past, I'll at least be able to give you a soul that is appropriate for your current level. The martial king could not help but laugh. His disciple, Yi Wu, truly knew how to game the system. Though Yi Wu was explaining everything as if it could be so simple, how long had he spent trying to find this solution? And how much effort did he expend to check the possibility? The martial king was grateful toward Yi Wu, and he also felt a bit sorry. Why was he causing his disciple so much suffering? Fragments. The martial king relaxed and muttered softly as he had fallen half asleep in his chair when Yi Wu was giving his explanation. The psychic medium had taken that opportunity to urgently ask Yi Wu a question. But wouldn't the essence of those fragments change as the world line divided the universes? Is it really possible to create a whole from all those fragments? Furthermore, do you think they'll be compatible? Of course, Yi Wu was not sure whether his plan would work perfectly. Fragments of a soul left by emperor-level being. Though they were being referred to as fragments, they were probably far larger than any mortal soul. Furthermore, it was unclear in what form they would exist. Some may have undergone reincarnation. The fragments possessed such outstanding talents and potential that they would be deemed geniuses from heavens, so they could be active existences. Perhaps one or some of them had already attained exuviation and transcendence, reigning as the singular supreme god in another universe. Some fragments may have turned into disasters, devouring the entire civilization. If the fragments kept evolving, they may even turn into a beast that brings the end of days, terminating whatever universe they were originally located in. They may transform into a weapon and become a divine item, or they may not have an existence at all, scattering throughout the world and becoming a non-living material, like a spirit vein. The fragments may try to become a new emperor-level being by mixing with some other transcendent beings, or they may be buried very deep and do nothing. What form would the fragments take? What kind of tendencies would they have? What characteristics would they possess? There was no way to know. The fragments of the soul were, after all, close to a gigantic mass of energy without an ego. The psychic medium was alluding to this point. The fragments that undergo such mutations may have completely different appearances and identities from the current martial king. Would it be possible to have them forfeit their existence to become a part of another martial king? Was that really possible? Yi Wu was adamant that he would make it possible. Yi Wu had already obtained omnipotence. However, the crux of the issue was whether he could properly amalgamate the fragments. Even if they were reinserted into the martial king, Yi Wu thought that the fragments, which had already been filled with other thoughts, may actually cause harm to the martial king's existence. When Yi Wu was about to say something to reply to the psychic medium's line of questioning, the martial king suddenly stretched out his hand and interrupted Yi Wu from speaking. "Wife, stop, but, we've heard all that we need to hear. If we ask any further, we're questioning the process and the intention of the person bringing us the process." Quote! My disciple said he'll handle it, right? For his beloved master, shouldn't I just hang back and see how things go? He's already attained such great things without our help. I'm sure he'll do what's necessary and figure things out for himself. Yi Wu looked at the martial king quietly and bowed his head. Whether the existence sitting in front of him was real or not, for Yi Wu, the martial king felt real. The way the martial king spoke to how he carried himself, this martial king was still the martial king. Husband. While the martial king was reminiscing about the conversation he had with Yi Wu at that time, the psychic medium called out to him in the present. "Yes, wife. If you cry again, you know I'll kill you, right?" Flinch. The martial king unconsciously trembled. The psychic medium's tone was very cold. "You are my husband, full stop. No one else. You're the man I chose. No matter what you look like, no matter what form you are, if you can laugh and talk with me like this, you are my husband." Okay. You're acting like Fant, who always needs someone to compliment or comfort him. Are you a kid, Tisk? Still, to compare him with Fant. Shush. Okay. It's the same as last time. I kept telling you not to do it, but you wouldn't hear me out. Eventually The martial king became a deaf mute in front of the nagging words pouring out from the psychic medium. He wondered if he had to get up from his bed and get down on his knees as punishment. The martial king. He was considered one of the strongest in the world of the tower, and he also served as Yin Wu's spiritual supporter. He was the quintessential husband of this age, a person bound to his wife and made infinitely small. Then let me ask you another question. What fragments of mine will be in this world line? When Yin Wu's explanation was over, the martial king had asked this question. Yin Wu replied, "Aren't you here now?" That answer was enough. Fortunately, he was not just an illusion in this world. That's what the martial king thought. He knew was breathing and alive in this world. One chapter in the book ended like this. So that's how it happened. Recently, I had a feeling that the world lines were dividing at a faster pace. I didn't even consider such an explanation. Cha Jung-woo nodded as the heavenly demon stated his thoughts. The division of the world line, and countless fragments of emperors. This was something neither the heavenly demon nor Cha Jung-woo, who led the division of the world line, had considered at all. No matter how omniscient they may be, unless they focused on these narrow areas and explored them further, it was bound to slip under their radar until they belatedly noticed them. Perhaps Yin Wu had come up with the idea as he dealt with soul matters throughout the time he spent swimming through the swamp of the abyss void. Open hollow corner bracket. Then, our Emperor Temper went to seek the fragments of his temper master and must find the temperamental pieces in all these different worlds. All this to recreate his temper master. What the hell was the world going to be like? Shannon muttered in a quavering voice. Shannon could easily imagine the mass-producing of existences as long as Yin Wu set his mind to it. The problem was that, in this world, was there anyone who could stop Yin Wu? Shannon trembled in fear as if the god of disaster had descended. Cha Jung-woo laughed at Shannon's exaggerated gestures and said, "The chapter mentioned that Yin Wu went to visit our parents first, so let's start there. I don't know what happened because I haven't been on Earth very much these days." Cha Jung-woo nodded before turning to the next chapter. And then he saw a blank white page with nothing written on it. Side Story Chapter 26 Session 1. At this moment, the person who had the most mixed feelings was probably Nocturne, who now knew his identity. My teacher's shadow. Nocturne wasn't a shadow from the 21st floor but a real being. However, he still identified as Nocturne, and not Sun Jae-won Vivasvat. The memories and emotions he'd experienced until now left too strong an impression on him. Thus, he could understand how the martial king was feeling inside right now. The martial king was probably despairing and wanted to give up on everything. He might want to flip everything over. Perhaps he was angry that all his emotions and memories were false. He couldn't die even if he wanted to, nor was he able to be angry. He needed someone to let out his anger on, but after that was done, all that awaited him was emptiness. And Nocturne knew this all too well. Still, his teacher was able to endure this because he was the martial king. Nocturne and the martial king were on entirely different levels. Nocturne silently closed his eyes. He wanted to descend to where the martial king was and ask if he was okay. He used to admire the martial king, and he also resented and despised him. But right now, he just wanted to stay by the martial king's side. However, the reason why he wasn't able to do so. It's because I still lack the courage. Nocturne's father, the heavenly demon, said misunderstandings and hurt feelings should be resolved instead of being kept tucked away. People who believed they would be solved and forgotten over time were fools, and these feelings could unknowingly build up inside of you and suddenly explode. It was important to clear any misunderstandings, and for that, one needed to have a conversation face to face and listen to what the other was thinking. Only then would there be no regret. Nocturne knew what he had to do, but he found it difficult to step up to the task. He was hesitant because he thought it might make his teacher more upset if he showed up now. All kinds of thoughts swept through his mind. I suppose I should still go. He needed to go talk to the martial king. If he kept postponing it, there would be nothing left in the end. Nocturne slowly stood up, and everyone turned to look at him. They had all been wondering what to do after seeing the blank white page, and they tilted their heads in confusion, not understanding what Nocturne was doing. The heavenly demon smiled faintly, as if he was the only one to know. Have you decided? Yes. The heavenly demon's smile deepened. He looked proud of his son. You've grown up. Nocturne thanked the heavenly demon with a bow and left. The moment he stepped forward, a portal opened and swallowed him up. Cha Jung-woo and Shannon didn't know what had happened between the father and son, but they could tell some of the awkwardness in their relationship had eased and that they had become closer. The two who were traveling along parallel lines that couldn't overlap had finally changed directions to meet. Jung-woo didn't ask what happened between them. It was enough that the distrust between the two had disappeared, and he knew the situation with the martial king brought about their reconciliation. What happened between the father and son was between them, so Jung-woo left their business to them and focused on Yeon-woo's life again. If Yeon-woo had gone to collect these fragments of stars, was it necessary for him to leave without a word to him or the heavenly demon? Wouldn't it have been easier to collect the fragments with my help? Jung-woo was called master of all laws, across multiple world lines. As Deus Ex Machina, he was the god of the wheel that ruled and controlled over everything, and he was a manifestation of the laws of causality. Just with his mere will, he could probably gather the scattered pieces of the martial king. There must have been a reason why Yeon-woo had to hide it. Where do I start? There were no books that had records of Yeon-woo, the Black King's will unconscious. That meant Yeon-woo cut off his connection with his real body, so there would be no traces of his whereabouts. He had gone independent. Of course, if Yeon-woo wished, he could recover the connection to his real body. The problem was that when he was disconnected, he was pretty much without his omniscience and omnipotence, so it would be dangerous if something happened. Wondering about the possible reason and if something bad had actually happened, Jung-woo couldn't help but feel anxious. Well, he did say he was going to speak to our parents. Jung-woo was about to look into Kronos and raise conversation with Yeon-woo, but realized they might not have realized what he was up to. Their gazes when looking at their son was probably only filled with love. He needed a third party, someone who was very close to Yeon-woo, and there was a particular someone that came to mind. Sesha. But Jung-woo wondered if he could take a peek at Sesha's records, because it would be like sneaking a look at his daughter's hidden diary. He was hesitant. It wasn't like he could look at his daughter's private life with the heavenly demon and Shannon. I have no choice. Unfortunately, Jung-woo truly had no other choice. He would just close the book after skimming to see if there was anything about Yeon-woo. And he would never speak of what he saw. If his daughter had a boyfriend, I'll just have to kill him. Cha Jung-woo's eyes glinted dangerously. Would you like to attempt another search? Gulp. Jung-woo swallowed and extended his hand in the air. Beep beep, beep, beep. An alarm blared, screaming at Sesha to wake up. Sesha, who was wearing pajamas with adorable bears and a pink bunny sleeping mask, groaned. She didn't want to wake up. That was the only thought in her mind. This was an event that took place every morning, so Sesha wondered why she couldn't just get used to it. To her, school was a prison that kept in students who needed to be free. This was a conspiracy created by society so that they could create dull human beings who would be slaves. She wanted to shout these statements at the top of her lungs. Open corner bracket ho-ho-ho. Instead of thinking such peculiar things, don't you think it would be best to wake up and stretch? Like me, hoo-hoo. You don't sleep. Open corner bracket nah, of course not. I try to sleep at least 8 hours a day. The secret to my flawless skin is sleep. I'm not curious about the skin of a perverted skinhead who likes bunny girl hats. Open corner bracket our little Miss Sesha is being shy again. I'm not. Sesha wanted to tell Laplace, the creature who kept on blabbering nonsense in her shadows, to shut up. But Laplace didn't even pretend to listen to her. He just continued to speak gibberish 24/7. She was going to go crazy because of him. I want to sleep for just 5 more minutes, but you always wake me up. Cha so young. Just then, the door burst open with a shout. It was Ananta, wearing an apron while holding a ladle in her right hand. Get up. You need to eat before going to school. Sesha brought her blankets over her head. I'm not gonna eat, so just 10 more minutes. No, just 5 more. What are you talking about? You're not going to have enough strength if you don't eat. How are you going to study? It's fine. So, the soup's going to get cold. Hurry and get up. Erg, I don't want to. Sesha showed no indication of getting up. She was 17 this year, an adolescent who didn't listen to her parents. The problem was that Ananta was just as fiery as Sesha. Displeased, an eyebrow twitched on Ananta's face. Get up this instant. Whatever. Is that so, Laplace? Open corner bracket yes, ma'am. I've been waiting for you to say that. Suddenly, Sesha's shadow expanded and something large popped out. It was a man who was at least 2 meters tall with very bulky and burdensome to see muscles. His shirt was who knew where, and his chest muscles heaved shinly. On his smooth head were his trademark bunny ears. The cute and adorable bunny is Hiri. Laplace lifted Sesha, blankets and all, as if it was a familiar routine. Let me go, you perverted bunny. Open corner bracket ooh. Very good. Please continue to insult me like that. Ha, ha. No matter how much Sasha kicked and struggled, Laplace didn't even blink. In this household, Ananta was higher on the hierarchy than Jungwoo, so it was obvious who Laplace needed to obey. Laplace forced the blankets away from Sasha and pushed her into the bathroom. Even the sleepiest of people would have woken up by now. Ah, Sasha glowered at Laplace. Open corner bracket ho ho ho. I love it. Very good. Please continue to despise me like that. Quote exclamation mark quote. However, Laplace was a step above Sasha. After Yi and Wu took care of all the dungeons, society returned to before the day of the beginning. Of course, it wasn't a complete recovery. It wasn't possible to return the developed society back to normal in the span of a day. However, society continued to move forward, and Sasha turned 17 and entered high school. As one of the most powerful players, she was so famous that she was called a celebrity, but she wanted to live normally like the other children her age. And her wishes quickly turned to regret not a month after she started school. I shouldn't have said I'm going to school. Sasha thought to herself with a petulant expression as she chewed her food. Who knew you had to get up so early? Sasha didn't used to have trouble waking up early when she was a player. It was strange, but because she had aged, her stamina wasn't like before, and she disliked the strict rules enforced by school. School life was definitely enjoyable. She liked learning things she didn't know, and she had a lot of friends. But she could never get used to this battle in the mornings if only she could sleep a little more. And her mom was too much, forcing her to eat breakfast before sending her off. Thank you for the meal. Sasha set her chopsticks down and stood up, hoisting her backpack on her shoulder. Ananta looked down at the table and frantically chased after Sasha, putting down the dishes she was doing. Sasha's soup was nearly untouched, and she'd only had a few spoonfuls of rice. Why are you getting up already? You should eat more. Whatever, I don't feel like it. Bam, Sasha slammed the door as she left. It was a small rebellion for forcing her to get up. Ananta sighed, left alone at the door. Who does she take after? She was thankful her weak daughter had grown up to be healthy, but she was sad about Sasha becoming more fiery-tempered by the day. Grandpa, oh my, why is our little princess so angry? Kronos always drove Sasha to school because their house was located in a quiet place slightly farther away from Seoul. Kronos greeted his adorable granddaughter with a smile and chuckled at her pouting lips. He knew his granddaughter was upset and wanted to vent to him about fighting with her mom. He could tell just from the way she spoke. Side story chapter 27 Sasha 2. Kronos couldn't hold his laughter in as he drove. Ha 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 ha. It's not funny, Grandpa. Ha 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 ha, Grandpa. Ha ha, okay, okay. Ahem. Kronos bit his lower lip to stop laughing, but he couldn't stop the corners of his mouth from twitching. Sasha vented to Kronos about how wrong she felt about what happened in the morning, but the way she spoke was too cute. If Kronos had to pick the greatest joys of his life these days, it would be the growth of his youngest daughter and his adolescent granddaughter. His life hadn't been the smoothest, and he wasn't able to love and pamper his children. So, now, he was giving all the love he missed out on to these children. Of course, raising children wasn't easy. Playing with kids was more exhausting than expected. And when the kids entered the period of being troublemakers, it was an understatement to say it was tiring. Still, they grew up a little every day, and it was adorable to watch. This child, Sasha, who was just a tiny 6-year-old, was now on the verge of becoming an adult. It felt quite strange. Humph, even now, the way Sasha turned around and pouted angrily was adorable. It seemed like yesterday she followed Kronos around saying, "Grandpa, Grandpa," but she had grown up so much. Our princess is angry again, I see. No, I'm not. Sasha's words clearly didn't match her actions. I wonder what I should do to appease our princess. Humph, let's see. Kronos stepped on the brakes when the traffic light turned red and began to rummage around the backseats. Sasha pretended not to care, but she peeked glances behind her. A slight smile appeared on Kronos' face as he added, "I think a new model of that tablet came out recently." Twitch, I must be getting old. I bought this because someone said they wanted it, but I can't seem to remember who. Twitch, Twitch, should I just give it to Yoon? It seems like kids these days watch stuff on their tablets. Hey, Grandpa, the light turned green. Let's go. Sasha intertwined an arm around Kronos' right arm and beamed. From her mini tantrum to a wide smile, it was a rapid transformation. Kronos chuckled at her obvious actions. Yup, let's go. The car began to move again. But really, Who should I give this to? Grandpa. As you know, I started a new semester recently. But trying to take notes on all my subjects is hard. Sometimes I forget a notebook, and sometimes I get confused and write in the wrong one, so I have to do it twice. Sounds difficult, doesn't it? Oh my, nothing should come in between my princess and her studies. Should I get you a recording machine then? Or maybe a package of notebooks? No, that's not it. It's the 21st century on Earth right now and the period of electrical advancement. Should our tools also change to match? And I can watch online lectures too, Oh, so you want to take lectures at a cram school? Is there a particular one you want to attend? I heard once that Dong is well known for. Grandpa. Sesha became upset as Kronos danced around the subject. Goodness, that surprised me. You're going to give me a heart attack. My heart's already weak enough. That's hard to believe coming from someone who has divinity. Hee, you got me. Tisk, you're just like Dad sometimes. Even so, Sesha was smiling. Anyway, please, can you give it to me as a present for starting high school? I remember getting you a game console for that. Nope, that was my birthday present. And I need the tablet for studying. Please. Kronos was about to remind Sesha he gifted her clothes on her birthday, but he surrendered when he saw her shining eyes. He had gotten the tablet for Sesha anyway. All right, you have it. Yes, you're the best, Grandpa. Thank you. Sesha hugged the tablet to her chest and excitedly kissed Kronos on the cheek. She said she wouldn't kiss him on the cheek anymore since she was older, but it seemed the present was quite effective. Sesha sat on the edge of her seat as she hummed. There couldn't be a greater joy than organizing and downloading necessary applications on her new tablet. Ooh, newbie, who gave that to you? Your boyfriend. Just then, someone popped out from behind the tablet. It was Park Yoo-min, Sesha's desk partner who had become her best friend. A boyfriend, please. Then, my grandfather, Sesha said proudly. Whoa, your grandpa gets you stuff like this. I said I wanted this in passing some time ago, and he must have remembered. He's meticulous too. It isn't easy for grandfathers to be like that. Must be because he lives young. Park Yoo-min once happened to see Kronos as he dropped Sesha off to school. Kronos looked so young that she thought he was an older brother or uncle. She remembered being surprised when Sesha told her he was her grandfather. The same went with Sesha's mom, Ananta. She knew Ananta had been on television a few times back when Sesha was a player, but she really was beautiful and looked young enough to be Sesha's older sister. And even Sesha's father, who came by the front of the school to give Sesha the lunchbox she left at home. Yoo-min didn't think there could be any parents more beautiful than Sesha's. Rumors spread around the entire school that there was a reason why Sesha became famous as a pretty player. It was the power of genes. My grandpa's just attentive. Sesha looked happy boasting about her grandfather. My grandfather just scolds me about my grades, Yoo-min grumbled, then looked at the clock on the wall, calculating how much time they had left before class started. Wanna go to the school store? Growl. Sesha was about to decline, but the rumble in her stomach told her not to. Park Yoo-min giggled. Wanna go? Sesha started to nod when she suddenly recalled the breakfast Ananta told her to eat before leaving. She had grumbled and left without eating any of the food her mom woke up early to prepare for her. What did her mom do about it? Did she throw it away? Or did she finish the leftovers because she didn't want them to go to waste? I hope she didn't. Sesha's head was cramped with all kinds of questions. Okay, then. Sesha nodded absently. She felt a bit apologetic to her mom. The student store was located behind the school building. Chatting with Yoo-min about what kinds of snacks to eat today, Sesha headed down the stairs and saw the store was busier than normal. Arg, why are there so many people today? Yeah, maybe there's some new menu item. They neared the store, but the crowd didn't become any smaller. They wondered if they should just return at a later time. Sesha had been through all kinds of dangerous situations growing up, and her life had been in the spotlight even on Earth, so she didn't enjoy places that bustled with people. She was about to suggest they go back to Yoo-min, but Yoo-min stood on her toes and nodded in understanding at what she saw. Oh, Sung-chan's over there. Sung-chan, who's that? You don't know. Who is he? Wow, so clueless to the things around you. This is the problem with popular kids. Don't say that in front of Sung-chan, he'll probably be hurt. So, who is he? You really don't know. I don't. You don't remember the kid who confessed to you last month? It wasn't just one or two people. Ah, yes, of course. Park Yoo-min shook her head in mock disgust. Yoo-min liked Sesha, and they were good friends. Sesha was pretty on the outside, and she was actually a bit picky. But she was extremely generous to those close to her, and she cared so much for her friends that she was almost intrusive. However, toward those she didn't care for or weren't in her circle, she was ruthlessly indifferent. She didn't care what they said or did, and when Yoo-min asked her about it, she just replied half-heartedly. Then, she would forget about it. Sesha had clear likes and dislikes, and she despised doing things she didn't want to. Even for the things that weren't much trouble, she would straight up say no or distance herself from them. This was why many of the people who first approached Sesha for her fame didn't attempt to befriend her, and Sesha only had about 5 or 6 people who were actually friends, including Yoo-min. It wasn't all too different for the guys who confessed to her. There was at least one boy in every class who was turned down by Sesha's indifference, and if you counted those who had crushes on her, they would probably fill one entire truck. Anyway, so Sung-chan. Chan-sung, who is he, and why are there so many people? He's an idol. What? Not you, silly, he's the idol that sings. Oh, you might not know it, but he's super famous. I heard he's filming something at school before he goes on his tour for North America. Maybe this is because of that. Sesha used her abilities to sense inside the store. There really was some boy making small talk to a camera while surrounded by students. She asked, "How do you know so well?" "Hee, my bias is a member of that group. I asked Sung-chan for a signature, I hope he didn't forget." "What's a bias? Are you a grandma?" Yoo-min then explained. Bias meant one's favorite member in a group or band, even giving examples. "Why's there so much slang? Last time you confused me with all those acronyms or something." "That's because you're OOTL. What's that? Out of the loop. Geez, it's been a long time since that one's been out. They don't even use it anymore." Then, Yoo-min grinned as she pulled her phone out. "Do you wanna see my bias?" "No, hey, I said no, come on, just once." Sesha was about to push the phone aside, but Yoo-min already started a video. There was nothing that made a fan more passionate than spreading word about their bias. In the end, Sesha was forced to watch a video she didn't want to. It was a recorded video of a live session of a guy interacting with fans. Him, what do you think? So cute, isn't he? Eek, our Jin-ho oppa just looks icy on the outside, he's actually super sweet and... Isn't this Lee Jin-ho? Oh, so even you know him. Of course, everyone knows our Jin-ho oppa. I met him last year when I was on TV. Park Yoo-min's eyes started to sparkle. Ryu close. No, I don't even know his number. I guess his surgery went well. What, his surgery went well? He said he was going to do his nose last time, and he really did. Looks like he touched his eyes too. He looked better before, if you ask me. What happened? What are you talking about? My oppa was born this way. Born that way, he was made that way. Do you want to know where else he did? Last year, he did surgery on. Yoo-min unwittingly heard her bias weakness and her gaze began to shake more tumultuously. Crash. The fantasies in her head came crashing down. Sesha didn't notice. She found it interesting that someone she was on TV with last year and someone who confessed to her although she didn't remember were in the same group. The world really was a small place. Let's go back up since we're not gonna be able to get anything. Sesha pulled Yoo-min's part to go up to their class, but the crowd suddenly split like the Red Sea and the male student and cameraman Sesha sensed earlier came running her way. Shin Sung-chan waved with a smile at Sesha. Hey, you're here. Hi, so young, are you here to see me? The camera turned to Sesha, who furrowed her eyebrows. She wondered what this bastard was planning to do. Side Story Chapter 28 Sesha 3. Before Shin Sung-chan met Sesha, the recording was quite boring. Cut. Let's resume after editing this part out. On producer Kim's orders, the cameramen and staff moved busily. Shin Sung-chan scratched the back of his head and sidled next to producer Kim, asking, "It's not going well, is it?" "Well, we can cut out the odd bits, and the episode doesn't need to be too long, so we'll get a good chunk. Since it's for YouTube, it can be more raw, but you seem pretty nervous today." "Really? Maybe it's because it's been a while since I've come to school." As producer Kim said, idol variety shows these days were about 10 to 15 minutes per episode, and no more than 30. It wasn't that difficult to film a full-length episode. Also, it wasn't that worrisome that the filming wasn't going smoothly because fans actually liked it when their celebrities seemed nervous. It was the type of raw emotion that wasn't shown on public TV channels. However, neither Shin Sung-chan nor producer Kim looked satisfied. Shin Sung-chan had 2 years of idol experience under his belt, so he knew that there wasn't much that could really be salvaged from today. Producer Kim had gone freelance after quitting a pretty well-known TV station, so he was anxious not to fail. Shin Sung-chan and producer Kim racked their brains to think of a solution. They looked through the script and contemplated whether they should prepare another corner or not. But there wasn't anything interesting in particular that could be filmed with the school or the store as the background, or they could ask for permission from the school and film him hanging out with his friends. That might be better. There were many fans who wanted to know about Shin Sung-chan's school life too. Just as producer Kim was wondering what direction they needed to take this in, one scriptwriter came up to him and said something. "What, really?" The scriptwriter nodded, saying it had been confirmed just moments ago, and producer Kim brightened. Then, he looked toward Shin Sung-chan mischievously, as if asking why he had kept such an item hidden. Shin Sung-chan got an ominous feeling. All of their group members had suffered whenever producer Kim made that smile. "I just heard the idol attends your school. And she's in the same class as you. Why did you hide something so interesting?" And no, Shin Sung-chan barely stopped himself from shouting. He was an idol too, but he knew too well who the idol producer Kim was speaking about was Cha So-young. The girl was famous for being the youngest S-class player when there were dungeons and gates. She was well known internationally, and she had many fans due to her cold and arrogant expression despite her age. However, after all the dungeons and gates were closed, Cha So-young retired and didn't make any public appearances. The mystery of it all made people curious about how Cha So-young was doing these days. Cha So-young recently garnered attention after articles about her entering high school made waves, but to think that it was the school that Shin Sung-chan attended. On top of that, she was his classmate. Producer Kim's eyes blazed. On the other hand, Shin Sung-chan had difficulty controlling his expression as the name he wanted to avoid came up. It wasn't like he could say it was awkward to see her because she rejected him either. He could trust producer Kim, but if the other staff got wind of this, his face might be on the front page of tomorrow's newspaper. Less than Sung-chan of Bad Boys, rejected by idol. Greater than, less than how Sung-chan of Bad Boys became a sad boy. Greater than. These would probably be the main headlines, and as a 17-year-old, Shin Sung-chan didn't want to be embarrassed on a national level when he had just become an adolescent. "I have to stop him." Shin Sung-chan was about to say anything but Cha So-young, when. "You're close, right?" Producer Kim grinned and spoke first. "The thing is, goodness, producer Kim, that's such an obvious question." Shin Sung-chan was about to hint why he couldn't do it when the scriptwriter jumped into their conversation. "Right, of course, they call her an idol and all that, but our Sung-chan is famous too. Famous people have that connection with each other, don't they, Sung-chan?" Ooh, that's nice. So how's the idol's personality? Is she really as arrogant as they say? I also heard she's quite mature for her age." "Oh my, then she must be close to Sung-chan. Sung-chan's also like that. It must be because they've been in society from a young age." "That's true." "So, you're close, right?" It was hard to say no since they said that. Shin Sung-chan couldn't refuse the producer and scriptwriter's expectant faces. On top of that, the other staff were murmuring excitedly about seeing the idol, so he couldn't decline them and say he wasn't close. He was a people pleaser, and his pride as a young boy didn't allow him to say he didn't know the girl. Shin Sung-chan swallowed and nodded. Oh, of course. Shin Sung-chan felt like he was digging his own grave. Usually, Sung-chan was right when he received an ominous feeling, and this very moment was no exception. He greeted Sesha when she was pushed to the store by the crowd, but her face looked as if she was asking him what he was doing. It was the expression she made when her classmates or seniors who weren't close to her spoke to her. Many male students had fallen for that icy gaze. Well, I was among them too. Cha So-young was very pretty. She was as pretty or even prettier than the female celebrities Sung-chan has met during his career. But what should I do now? Sung-chan's heart raced when she didn't answer him. Thump, thump, thump. He got chills running down his back, because he thought that the lie he told would be revealed. Producer Kim and the scriptwriter seemed to notice something was off too. His heart pumped faster as if he ran straight for 200 meters. "Yeah, hi." Sesha waved and walked back up the stairs. Her best friend Park Yoo-min smiled awkwardly and followed her. Wow, I heard even adults have a hard time speaking to her, so it was true. "Yoonhoo, did you get that just now?" "Yes, I got it clear and well." She really is different. Fortunately, producer Kim didn't think it was strange. He was more interested in how much of Sesha was recorded. Ha! Shin Sung-chan breathed out in relief. Thump, thump, thump. His heart slowed down, but it was still beating fast. However, the reason for this thumping was different from before. Shin Sung-chan stared at the stairs where Sesha had just been. You know that. What? They say you're indifferent, but I think you're just super cynical. Nonsense. Sesha chatted with Park Yoo-min as she walked back to class. I'm right. Only you could treat Sung-chan so coldly. I don't care. See, but you're really not interested in boys. Not really. Strange. Didn't girls usually dream of having boyfriends at this age? At this age, girls had lots of dreams and things they liked. They would gossip with their friends about who was good-looking, who was cute, and who was their ideal type. The same went for Park Yoo-min. She was determined to get a boyfriend this spring and go to the Cherry Flower Festival with him. If that didn't happen, she would get a boyfriend before June and go to the Yoido Festival then. If she couldn't do either before she graduated high school, her high school life would be too sad. But thinking about it, Park Yoo-min didn't remember Sesha ever talking about boys. When they were talking about it with their friend group on the way home, she was just listening. She only spoke up to give advice. That was why Yoo-min was curious as to whether or not Sesha was interested in boys or not. She never looked at the boys who were always chasing her around. It couldn't hurt to take a slight peek, could it? And the Bad Boys were one of the top 3 boy bands these days, with Shin Sung-chan being the most popular and youngest. He probably had many individual fans. And the way he looked at Sesha from a third party's point of view, he looked like he still cared very much. Sure, very strange, Sesha just responded with an uncaring face. To be honest, she wanted to say, if you went through those things in the tower, you wouldn't be interested in boys either. She spent a childhood most people couldn't even imagine, and she had matured psychologically unwittingly. Of course the boys her age wouldn't meet her standards. They just seemed like immature little children to her. Sesha's surroundings didn't do any good for her either. Kronos, Cha Jung-woo, and Yeon-woo, all of them were men who were at the top of what they did. Moreover, they were lookers too. Still, Are So Young's grown up, huh? You responded to him since there was a camera rolling. Stop hugging me, it's hot, that only makes me wanna do it more. Hey. Class began, and they were on their second break period. Growl. Sesha hugged her starved stomach. So hungry, she should have eaten the breakfast her mom prepared for her. Strangely, she was feeling even hungrier today. She rested her head on her desk, not wanting to do anything in particular. Plop. Suddenly, something fell next to her. Sesha opened her eyes and saw a plastic bag filled with bread sitting on her desk. Park Yoo-min looked at Sesha like she was pathetic. You should go to the store if you're hungry. What are you doing lying over your desk like that? I'm too lazy. You're sure you're not too lazy to breathe too? I am, but not anymore. Sesha jumped up and dug through the bag. Yoo-min had brought many kinds of bread, even the bean jam buns Sesha enjoyed. Sheesh, and they call you idle. Park Yoo-min shook her head from side to side. Starving out of laziness. Yoo-min detested being hungry more than anything, so she didn't understand. But Sesha still enjoyed eating what Yoo-min brought her. She looked like a squirrel eating an acorn as she carefully tore open the cover and chewed the bun. Be neater when you eat, geez. Park Yoo-min pulled out a wet tissue and wiped the jam and sugar that was on Sesha's face. Sesha squeezed her eyes together and began to eat her bread again when Yoo-min removed the tissue. Yoo-min muttered, how did you become the idol when you require so much care? Humph, I can take care of myself. Yes, sure. Park Yoo-min shook her head and spoke as she pulled a bun out of the bag for herself. Oh right, you know the filming from this morning. Chan Sung, that thing he was filming. It's Sung-chan. Same thing, don't ever say that in front of his fans. They're gonna crush your head in. Sheesh, anyway, what about it? They're still filming it. Yeah, they're probably filming until the after-school study session is done. What's there to film? They said they're going to film our school's mystery. Hearing about the school's mystery, Sesha had an odd feeling and tilted her head inquiringly. Side Story Chapter 29 Sesha 4. Mystery. What's that? Sesha tilted her head because it was her first time hearing about such a thing. Everything related to the system was retrieved after Yeon-woo awoke, and all the dungeons and gates closed. Most mysterious and magical phenomena in the world had disappeared. Even if there were some remnants left, it was only the trivial objects, and they were currently being used for science. Mystery, in present day was most likely just another remnant. But there wasn't anything like that. If there was a remnant at school, Sasha would have noticed by now. She was born with dragon blood, and her perception of magic was far above everyone else's. Even with the system retrieved, Sasha would still use magic. Unlike the other players, who only used skills given by the system, she had learned how to control it from Ananta. Park Yoo-min nodded and moved closer to Sasha, whispering as if she was sharing a secret only for her ears. Yup, you know the statue of King Sejong in the schoolyard? The one in the middle. Yeah, when the clock strikes midnight, apparently it starts moving. What? Sasha blinked. The statue of King Sejong was something she was familiar with as well. Along with the statue of Yi Sun-sin, it was a statue that could be seen commonly at most schools. Beneath the stone statue where King Sejong was sitting with dignity was the Korean alphabet. But Sasha could guarantee the statue was just an ordinary factory-made object. There were no traces of magic to be found on it. And around that time, sounds of soft piano playing can be heard from the music room, and the lights of the seniors' classrooms on the third floor light up, and strange shadows. Hey, Sasha cut Yoo-min with a scowl. How old are you again? Huh. Yoo-min seemed to be describing a scene from a movie that came out when they were younger. Scary stories about schools were popular back then too, so Sasha remembered them very clearly. Park Yoo-min sighed. Darn it, you didn't fall for it. People who fall for that are probably idiots. Right, but seriously, I know I sound ridiculous, but I'm not lying. Stop pulling my leg. I'm being serious. Park Yoo-min wagged her index finger. There are real eyewitnesses, even in our class. Sasha's unbelieving face turned into one of interest. Eyewitnesses? Yeah, our class president said she was going home after an after-school study session and then came back to school after remembering she forgot one of her books. Oof. Sasha glanced to her side with a face that screamed, yikes. At the end of her gaze was a glass-wearing girl solving math problems in the corner of the classroom. The girl always studied even when everyone else was chatting and playing around during their break time. She was truly amazing. Sasha could never do that, but that was probably because her grades were surprisingly good considering how much effort she put, or in this case, didn't put into her studies. And when she returned, it was around midnight, and the lights were all off. She has guts. Exactly. Anyway, she was going to her class when she suddenly started to hear piano sounds. Fur release or something like that. Maybe someone left their phone behind and that's where it was coming from. Maybe, but then the lights in another classroom suddenly switched on, and she saw shadows moving. Then she ran away because she was scared. Maybe it was just a thief. You know how our class president is, sharp as a tack. So that's what she thought too at first, and she called the police the next day to check. When? That day you were absent because you were at a photo shoot or something. Oh, that day. And what was the result? Nothing was stolen, and the classroom where the lights were turned on was closed with a lock, and there wasn't any indication of it being broken into. That's a bit strange. I hope it's not a pervert. Apparently that wasn't it either. And there's more. Park Yoo-min nodded and began to gush about what she'd heard. A student athlete who'd been going home late from training, a neighborhood resident who'd been walking her dog near the schoolyard, and even a teacher who had late night duties. It was strange that the rumors weren't further spread at this point. Is there a ghost or something? Sasha tilted her head and heightened her senses, but she still didn't feel anything. Ghosts, spirits, phantoms, nothing. There just wasn't anything at this school that was related to mana in general. How do you know all that? Hee, it's interesting. You should try studying with that passion. Shut up, I'm going my own way. Sasha shook her head and became deep in thought for a moment. Should I go and check it later? If there really was something left behind that she hadn't been able to sense, and if it was a remnant of a dungeon that Yi and Woo hadn't retrieved, it could end up being dangerous in the future. What should I do? Sasha contemplated returning later alone in the evening. If she got a bad feeling about it, she could always call her family. She could probably take care of it herself, but if there really was a mystery, it could be dangerous since it was strong enough to go undetected by her senses. Of course, no matter how great the danger, Kronos would be able to take care of it with just a wave of one hand. But I can't request something from Mom and Grandpa with something that hasn't been confirmed. Sasha needed to find out what the mystery was first. What a bother. Sasha shivered at the thought of having to return to school so late, then remembered why they were on this subject. Oh right, so they're gonna film experiencing this mystery for the show. Yeah, it seems like the kids who are fans of Sung-chan are going to stay behind until then. They're probably going to be slapped on their backs by their moms. Park Yoo-min smiled mischievously at Sesha, who seemed contemplative. Why, you're interested? It'll be dangerous if there really are monsters left. Ooh, idol, can you please stop calling me that weird name? Ooh, hero of justice, I shouldn't have even tried. If the mystery is a monster, we'll be able to see the black dragon that's asleep in your arm, right? There's nothing like that, really. They said on your fandom forum that our goddess is hiding wings beneath her clothes and I said to stop. Sesha shouted because she felt like Yoo-min would continue to say weird things at this rate. But that didn't deter Yoo-min from teasing her. Producer Kim brightened upon receiving good news from the scriptwriter. Really, is that true? Yup, phew, looks like everything's going smoothly from here. All the staff members looked to producer Kim after his loud reaction. They wondered why he was being so dramatic this time. Just then, producer Kim burst up and walked toward Shin Sung-chan, who was getting his makeup retouched by his stylist. Shin Sung-chan looked at producer Kim through the mirror when the producer suddenly grasped his hands. Hey, Shin, is there anything you want to eat later? You're not allowed to eat properly because your comeback date is coming close, right? Just give me the word, and I'll order you food when your manager isn't looking. You should say that when my manager is gone. Manager Kim Hung-eun glared at Shin Sung-chan with crossed arms from far away. But did something good happen? Kya, I didn't know our Shin was so proactive with this show. Sorry for not realizing your genuineness earlier. Quote. Shin Sung-chan still looked confused, not understanding what producer Kim was saying. Now, it was producer Kim's turn to look confused. It wasn't you who got the idol to participate in our filming. So Young is. Shin Sung-chan looked dumbfounded at the unexpected news, but he quickly cleared his throat and responded with composure when he spotted his manager glaring at him through the mirror. I just asked if she could help with our show. But I told her it was fine since she looked a bit uncomfortable, haha. I guess So Young heeded my request without me knowing. It would have been nice if she texted me about it, haha. She probably wanted to surprise you. Very good, very good. You brought the idol. Phew, our Shin is so capable, huh? Producer Kim patted Shin Sung-chan's shoulders while he nodded. The stylist glared at him because the makeup brush missed its mark with every pat, but the producer didn't seem to notice. He was too overjoyed. It was harder than pulling a star down from the sky to cast the idol in a show, but Shin Sung-chan had done it. The staff became much busier. Sesha's popularity was beyond comparison to Shin Sung-chan's. She was a star of stars who was famous globally. They had to give her their best treatment. The script writers also quickly revised the script while the cameramen called headquarters to request more staff. Shin Sung-chan's agency heard the news and said they would send more people as well. If this filming went well, Shin Sung-chan and his group's popularity and reputation would soar. Producer Kim and the rest of the staff, who were in charge of this show, would be able to add a spectacular project to their job experiences. However, Shin Sung-chan, who was at the center of it all, looked far from excited. So Young, the same thought repeated in his head over and over again. So Young is coming, to see me. Cherubs blew trumpets in Sung-chan's mind. In his imagination, he was already married to Sesha and had 2 children with her, and they were living close to his in-laws. But of course, it was all in his head. The greater the delusion, the greater the shock would be when it was broken. Mom, go ahead and eat first. I think something similar to a dungeon appeared at the school. Sesha was writing a message for her mom. She needed to tell her mom that she'd be late today. However, she wasn't able to press the send button. Mom, go ahead and eat first. I think something similar to a dungeon appeared at the school. Also Sesha typed an extra 4 letters. Also, after biting her lip for a while, she pressed a few more letters. Also, I'm sorry about. All Sesh had to write was, I'm sorry, or, I apologize. Why was it so hard? The prideful 17-year-old adolescent had difficulty being truthful to her mom. In the end, Sesha erased everything from the also and pressed send. For the next few moments, Sesha glared at her phone. After a while, the red appeared and Ananta's response arrived. Ding, do you need me? After some deliberation, Sesha pressed the keys again. I'm fine. Okay, don't worry about me, and take it easy. Eat something too. You know safety is more important, right? I love you. Ha. After the conversation via messages was over, Sesha put her phone down and sighed. The last words echoed in her head. I love you. Her mom was worried about her instead of scolding her for this morning's actions, but why couldn't she apologize? I'm so stupid. Sesha kicked the innocent floor again and again. Side story chapter 30 Sesha 5. It was late at night. All the students had left to go home, and the school was quiet. Amid the busily moving staff members, Shin Sung-chan saw Cha So-young from far away. She was drinking warm tea given to her by some staff member. The hazy face behind the white steam from the tea was beautiful. Shin Sung-chan felt his back straighten. He was being pathetic. The small demon inside Shin Sung-chan that always gave him courage began to shout in his ear. So-young is here to see you, you fool. So get yourself together, Shin Sung-chan. Straighten your shoulders and walk confidently. Yeah, So-young is here to see me. So act manly and confident. Muster the courage and go talk to her. Sung-chan quickly recalled a phrase, saying that only the brave got the beautiful women. Sesha would have looked at him more icily if she knew what he was thinking. She hated it when people she didn't even like pushed themselves at her. Shin Sung-chan slapped himself on the cheeks. Thwack, thwack. His manager looked at him with a, what's wrong with him now? Expression. Shin Sung-chan was fine in all aspects, but a fault of his was that he often counted his chickens before they hatched, and he ended up digging his own grave. The manager always had to keep a close eye on him. Shin Sung-chan strutted toward where Sesha was. In his head, he repeated to himself, be natural, again and again. He intended on walking toward her naturally and nonchalantly starting up a conversation. However, contrary to his wishes, he was acting noticeably nervous. His movements were jerky like a broken robot. The first to notice Shin Sung-chan were Sesha and Park Yu-min, who had been chatting with each other. Park Yu-min narrowed her eyes at the sweating Shin Sung-chan. She could easily tell why he had come here and what he was thinking. So many fun things happen with So-young around. Park Yu-min enjoyed observing who broke down and stuttered in front of Sesha. It was also fun to watch Sesha's indifferent attitude toward them even though Sesha disapproved of Yu-min's cruel hobby. Oh, Sung-chan. Hi. Hi. Sung-chan jerked his hand in a wave. His eyes weren't focused on Yu-min, who greeted him, but he kept peeking at Sesha. Sesha continued to sip her tea with an indifferent expression. She hadn't drank tea in a long time, and it was nice and warm. So-young. Hi. Yeah, hi. Quote. Sesha continued to drink her tea again, and Sung-chan's expression turned glum. The conversation starters he'd thought about before walking over had all left his head, and he couldn't come up with anything. His mind turned blank in front of Sesha. The only thought that came to mind was, she looks pretty drinking tea too. Shin Sung-chan turned to ice, and Sesha was uncaring. Tisk, tisk. Park Yu-min internally clicked her tongue. At this rate, they'd just be wasting time. She decided to help Sung-chan a bit for her own amusement. Hey, what about the thing I asked for last time? Huh, what thing? Park Yu-min wrinkled her forehead. You didn't forget, did you? I asked you to get me Jinho Oppa's signature. Oh, that, of course. How many do you need? I don't want signatures that were written like they're factory made. My name's on there too, right? Oh, of course. Shin Sung-chan nodded frantically. How could he not listen to Yu-min's request when she was the best friend of his crush? If he couldn't get to Sesha, Sung-chan needed to gain the hearts of the people around her. Thanks to Yu-min, Sung-chan was able to start a conversation about a member in his group, and Sesha occasionally joined in. Sung-chan clenched his fists. Tonight, he'd show an impressive side of himself and score points that way. Although he didn't know if things would go the way he wanted. Wow, it's been a long time since I've remained at school for this long. You're sure it's not your first time? I'll seem like a slacker if I say that. With producer Kim's signal, the cameras began to roll. It was only for a short moment, but Sung-chan's face was filled with happiness at having spoken to Sesha. Thanks to this, Sung-chan's speech throughout the recording was very smooth and natural. I like him because he's so simple-minded. What? Sesha tilted her head at Yu-min. Nothing. It's just something little kids wouldn't know. Quote. Sesha furrowed her eyebrows at what her demon-like friend was scheming this time, but Yu-min just smiled. How smart of me to think she'll tell me. Sesha turned back to the shadows. Hey, pervert bunny. Open corner bracket ha. Please continue to hurt me like that. I love it so much. From master to you, the Cha family is inviting me to a world of endorphins and adrenaline with all the pain. Ha. Sesha realized she made a mistake. It was best to quickly change the subject during times like this. It's not you, is it? Open corner bracket hoo 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 hoo. It's true I'm a pervert, and I did consider antagonizing the school, but I've never left your shadow. If master catches me, he will erase me immediately. Laplace was saying he wouldn't be idle in his duties to protect Sesha since it was Yianwu's command. You don't feel anything out of the ordinary. Open corner bracket actually, I looked around carefully after what you said. And, open corner bracket nada, it's very clean, really. Sesha thought that the news was just rumors then. It was likely there was no such thing as a mystery if Laplace hadn't been able to find anything either. Laplace always acted dumb in front of Sesha, but he was one of the 8 beings who ruled over the night. With all the otherworld gods bound to Yianwu, there was nothing in this world that could hide from his senses. Open corner bracket that's why it's strange. Sesha felt like she was splashed with cold water at Laplace's next words. What do you mean? You said it's clean. Open corner bracket hoo 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 hoo. So innocent and naive. Like I said, it's clean as if someone's cleaned it up intentionally. Single quote exclamation mark single quote. Open corner bracket it's impossible for something to be that clean. Even if there aren't any dungeons, mana still flows everywhere, and people's vestiges remain. Do you think it makes sense that there's nothing left behind in a place where hundreds of students spend half of their lives? Single quote open corner bracket the vestiges that humans release tend to clump together. The positive emotions like happiness and love combine, and the negative emotions like rage or depression combine. They all become a seed. Of those, we eat the negative emotions. Laplace added. Before the day of the beginning, each school had similar yet different horror stories, didn't they? Close corner bracket. Yeah, open corner bracket those were probably all real. The vestiges of students tend to be very intense. And considering the Korean education system it's even more intense. Sesha almost spent no time studying, so she couldn't relate, but there were definitely many flaws in South Korea's educational system. The gray concrete buildings, forced uniforms and strict rules, systems that made it difficult for students to be free after-school study sessions that kept students at school until night. The college admissions process, entrance exams, studying, stress. There were sometimes school violence cases that resulted from hierarchy among students. Strength in grades, or socioeconomic status, with ranks being divided according to these standards. It was fun hanging out with friends the same age, but that was a joy barely found beneath all the pressure. Everything else was dark and cold. The vestiges released in such an atmosphere couldn't be positive. Anxiety, confusion, depression, rage, fury, sadness all these negative emotions combined to become a negative vestige. The heavier vestiges weren't able to ascend and continued to sink. They built up at the bottom and spread throughout entire schools. That was how school horror stories came to be. The resentment and anger students weren't able to release were projected onto their schools. Open corner bracket what do you think of when you picture preschools or daycares? Happy and fun images. But what about school? The opposite. Open corner bracket exactly. There are reasons why all these horror stories are made. The problem is that the stories don't just end as that, and when students start to believe they're real, they become faiths. Open corner bracket yes. That's it. Faiths start from a teeny place like that. Of course, most faiths like that quickly disappear, but if that faith continues to grow and becomes holy close corner bracket Laplace's voice trailed off and he giggled. Shivers ran down Sesha's back. It felt as if she had taken a peek into the wickedness inside of Laplace. Sesha's shadow transformed into a bunny that revealed its sharp and gruesome teeth. Open corner bracket the subject of the story will obtain an ego, and that's when they start acting out. Fortunately, the bunny shadow that scared Sesha quickly returned to normal. But it doesn't make sense that it could hide from you. Open corner bracket right. That's the issue. Laplace thought for a moment. A newly born story I mean, a monster is controlled by instinct rather than intellect. I would know even if it ran away after seeing it. It's impossible that it can hide its presence perfectly. So you're saying what's here might not be a horror story? Open corner bracket there are 2 possibilities. A monster made from someplace else might have come here for the vestiges, or something could have happened to a young monster that was made here close corner bracket Laplace's voice turned sharp. And it could have evolved. Evolved? How? Open corner bracket I don't know. I wouldn't know. That's what we're here to find out, isn't it? Sesha nodded. Laplace was correct. She was here to confirm the news, so she needed to see for herself. A part of her was also relieved that she wasn't here at this time for nothing. However, it was impossible to know what this monster's purpose was. If there were some traces of the monster left behind, they could guess what it was, but there wasn't anything here, so it was difficult to prepare. Open corner bracket hoo hoo hoo. Still, don't worry, even if it's a special guy, it won't be able to hurt you. You can just believe in this cute and adorable bunny. You mean weird and perverted bunny. Open corner bracket haa, 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 haa. Again, please say the same thing one more time in that cold voice. No, open corner bracket please. Hum. Sasha couldn't focus on the school because of the panting sounds in her ear. Her only thought was that she was going to ask her grandfather or dad to get rid of Laplace after this was over. Ding, ding, ding. Just then, the bell signaling it struck midnight began to ring. Click, and the lights near the music room suddenly switched on. Sasha, Shin-sung-chan, and the rest of the staff who were filming turned in that direction. Musical note, musical note, musical note, musical note. It was very faint, but the sound of a piano could be heard. It was for Elise. Side Story Chapter 31 Sasha 6. There's really music playing. Did anyone see anyone go inside the school? And no, sir. The staff members began to murmur. Before the camera started rolling, they had confirmed that there was no one left on campus aside from the teacher who was on guard duty. To get inside the school from the front entrance, people had to walk through the field, so it was impossible to get inside without being seen by the staff. Also, the school was located on a hill, so it wasn't possible to climb over the back gates and sneak in. Move the camera, zoom in. Even with the creepy situation, producer Kim realized that this was an opportunity. It didn't matter whether or not there was a real ghost. He only knew that a big hit was right in front of him. There was a saying among singers that their song would be a big hit when the sound of a ghost was recorded during their session. It was unlikely the same jinx existed with idol reality shows, but everything depended on how producer Kim wrapped this up, exploring a scary school with famous idols Shin Sung-chan and Cha So-young. He could already smell the money rolling in. The cameraman swallowed and zoomed into the music room as producer Kim ordered. The soft chords of a piano from the illuminated classroom were carried by the wind. Für Elise was a piano composition written by Beethoven in 1810. It was a soft melody that everyone was familiar with, but the cameraman couldn't help but shiver. Hup. Then, he unintentionally gasped. He could see a human figure passing through the curtained window. Person. Someone's really there. The issue was that the visible human shadow was walking differently from how normal people did. Usually, when people walked, their heads slightly bobbed up and down. However, the shadow's head was unmoving while walking, as if sliding across ice. It looked like it had no legs. It's looking this way. Gulp. Shin Sung-chan swallowed. Just a few moments ago, he had been determined to score points with Sasha by showing his impressive side, but he looked extremely pale now. A drop of sweat dripped down his forehead. Cameraman number 1, who was filming Shin Sung-chan, didn't miss how his eyelids trembled. It was well known that Sung-chan was the youngest in his group, but it was also common knowledge that he was a scaredy cat. Apparently, he hated ghosts the most in the world. According to what the other members said, they had all gone to an amusement park together once, and Sung-chan was the only one to sit out the horror house. They wanted to force him inside, but their youngest looked as if was going to faint, so they couldn't bring themselves to do it. Producer Kim hadn't chosen the topic of this episode as exploring the school's mystery for nothing. Filming Sung-chan's daily school life was only a ploy. And just as the producer predicted, Sung-chan was noticeably shaking to the point that the cameraman wondered if he should stop filming. Cameraman number 1 made an inquisitive sound. Sasha was striding by Sung-chan. She was calm, not looking scared in the slightest. Producer Kim spun his finger in the air, telling Sasha's cameraman and scriptwriter to quickly follow her. You're not coming. Sung-chan jumped to attention at Sasha's question. Behind Sasha, Park Yoo-min was grinning like a cat who got the cream. She looked like she was asking him if he could still score points in this situation. Hey, don't show your weak side. Sung-chan steeled his resolve and straightened his back. Oh, of course not. I am. That's probably just a trick the staff is playing on us to scare us. Ha ha. He was laughing, but his voice was shaking. Tremble. Tap. Only the sound of footsteps could be heard in the dark and quiet hallway. Students had been bustling in here just hours ago, but it was now silent as if that had only been a dream. Sasha stood at the front, with Yoo-min following her, and Sung-chan was at the very end. Sung Chan wanted to power forward confidently, but he couldn't because his legs were shaking too much. The act of entering this place alone required a lot from him. On the other hand, Sesha looked unaffected. The three were all being filmed in the camera as they moved forward. Today's filming is gonna be incredible. Producer Kim was confident. Sesha, who looked as if nothing could faze her and was cool and collected even in this scary situation, Sung Chan, who was passionate on stage but awkward and clumsy at school, and Yu Min, who was watching the other two with amusement. The combination of the three was brilliant. And the friend Sesha had brought along looked good in the camera, and she was witty. She would probably be scouted by a bunch of places after this episode was broadcast. Whoa, what? Sesha tilted her head at Yu Min's random exclamation. Because you look cool. What? You're not scared of ghosts? I'm more scared of monsters. It was an answer that only players could give. Ha, I bet the monsters were more scared of you. Why? As they chattered, they soon arrived at the music room. Fur release was now over, and the piano was now playing Piano Concerto No. 5. Apparently, the ghost enjoyed Beethoven. Do you sense anything? Open corner bracket hoo 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 hoo. No, the shadow from earlier, could it just be a trick by the staff? Open corner bracket I would have told you then. Laplace sighed. Well, I'll be able to closely scan the music room, so even if the creature runs away I can catch him right away. Sesha nodded slightly so Laplace could see and put her hand on the handle to the music room. I'm opening it now. Park Yu-min nodded, and Shin Sung Chan swallowed. Creak. The door opened. However, heek. Sesha and Park Yu-min widened their eyes. Sung Chan gasped and closed his eyes. When the other two stayed quiet, Sung Chan peeked open an eye and turned surprised. There's no one here. The music room was bright, and the piano cover was open as if someone had just been playing it. Check the back door carefully. Open corner bracket ha. Such a cold voice commands I'm so happy. Crack. Sesha gritted her teeth at Laplace, who was clearly unable to read the room. She urgently felt the desire to beg her grandfather to get rid of him when she returned home. Sesha and her friends carefully examined the music room. The music had stopped the moment they reached the door. Only silence filled the room now, but the suspense that something might suddenly pop out kept the atmosphere tense. The staff members who followed them swallowed nervously. There really isn't anything. Sesha wrinkled her forehead and became deep in thought. She had looked in every nook and cranny in the cubbies and beneath all the desks, even looking behind the TV, but there was nothing there. Not a single speck of dust. She wondered if something had left the classroom, but Laplace informed her there wasn't. Just then, Shin Sung Chan suddenly screamed and fell backward. Sesha, Park Yu-min, and all the staff turned to him. He yelled, "Oh over there." Shin Sung Chan trembled and pointed his index finger. Beyond the window that looked out into the hallway, something was slowly moving. Thump, thump, each step it took made the hallway quake. Eek, what is that? Is it really a ghost? The staff, who were supposed to stay quiet, began to clamor in surprise. What was passing by the hallway was the statue of King Sejong, which should have been standing dignified in the middle of the schoolyard. The statue of King Sejong that was looking through the book of Hunmanjeongeum paused in its steps. Then, it slowly turned its head toward the music room. The people all looked at the statue. Grin. The statue of King Sejong raised a corner of its mouth as if it found the people cute. But to the people, the statue just looked unsettling. Eek, gasps and screams could be heard throughout the room. The filming was nearly forgotten. The statue of King Sejong made a sad face, upset that the people were scared of it, then it turned back to its book and continued walking. Thump, thump. Contrary to its confident self earlier, it now looked like a wet dog standing in rain. The statue was quite expressive with its emotions. Pervert bunny. Open corner bracket ha. Roger that. Cute and adorable bunny to the rescue. With a shout that sounded like it came from the anime he was watching these days, Laplace separated from Sesha's shadow and quickly slid under the door. Sesha quickly burst open the door and stepped into the hallway. Then, she saw it, the many statues that filled the hallway. Thump, thump, clunk, clunk, kiak, cock. It wasn't just the statue of King Sejong. The statue of Yi Sun-sin was training his sword skills, repeatedly striking down its sword from where it was standing, and two skeletons from the science labs were in the middle of a bizarre dance battle. Sesha questioned whether she was dreaming or not. And that wasn't all of it. There was a bony skeleton singing with a microphone it got from who knew where, and in front of it, dolls that the students had brought were jumping up and down like fans at a concert. Model Archaeopteryxes that used to decorate the ceiling powerfully thrust their wings. There was nothing normal about the scene. Wasn't there a word for situations like this? Shit show. Open corner bracket hua. What a shit show. If even Laplace was calling this a shit show, this was really bad. You said you didn't feel anything. How could you not know when they're all gathered like that? Open corner bracket right. I really didn't feel anything. Laplace laughed in disbelief. The problem is even with all this ruckus, I still don't sense anything. What? Sasha wondered if that was even possible. Open corner bracket it's completely out of my range of recognition. Laplace was silent. It seemed like his pride was hurt. The shadow that used to be shaped like Sasha was now shaped like a bunny. Oh well. Suddenly, from what appeared to be Laplace's eyes, red lights flashed. Flinch. Sasha subconsciously stepped backward. This was it, the reason Laplace wasn't someone to be looked down upon. He was probably trying to conceal his power to the best of his abilities, but a god of disorder that could easily swallow the entire earth could make living beings shake in fear just by existing. Open corner bracket I'm sure we'll learn something after eating them all up, right? Kikiki. Laplace's sharp canines glinted from his open mouth. Sasha swallowed. Something bad was on the verge of happening. Then, a moment later. Open corner bracket everyone, may I have your attention, please? Please look at the cute and adorable bunny. This is my lovely breakdance. A topless copper-skinned middle-aged man with bunny ears on his sparkling bald head was showing off his dance moves in the festival of statues, flexing his chest and biceps. I shouldn't have believed in that idiot. Sasha covered her face with her hand. Meanwhile, the copper-skinned man's dance continued, chests and biceps still flexing. Side story chapter 32 Sasha 7. Laplace said he was going to eat them all up, but it was the audience that ate his stage up. He continued to pose like he was competing in a bodybuilder competition. The muscles beneath his copper skin squirmed like keys on a piano. Clap clap clap. The dolls and statues clapped wildly like they were fans who were meeting their favorite star. They weren't able to cheer because they lacked vocal cords, but some of them gestured as if they were shouting. What was Sasha supposed to do with that attention-seeking pervert? She wanted to find a hole and hide. If someone else saw him. So young. At the sudden voice, Sasha straightened her back like a cat and turned around. Park Yoo-min was looking at the pervert bunny and ghosts with a mystified expression. Oh right. Sasha had forgotten about it because of the pervert bunny, but Park Yoo-min was very fearless for a normal human being, and she was a very curious person. While Sasha had the upper hand over others, in front of Park Yoo-min, she was always the weaker one. She had been victim to Yoo-min's mischief too many times to count. That guy, I don't know him. What, but your shadow. Ha ha. I don't know what you're talking about. Why you must be seeing things. Ha. Before Park Yoo-min could say anything, Sasha quickly cut her off. Then, she began to ramble like a mindless robot. She was incredulous at how bad her own acting was. I'm done for. My life is over because of that pervert bunny. Sasha's heart sank as she saw Yoo-min's eyes narrow. Park Yoo-min's expression was full of interest and amusement, and it was when she was making faces like these that she was scariest. No matter what excuse Sasha made, it wouldn't work. Open hollow corner bracket sob. The pervert bunny was fanning the blazing red flames on top of that. Open hollow corner bracket you're too cruel, hubby. You said you loved me, but you're tossing me aside because you're tired of having me around now. Laplace put his hands behind his head, showing off the clear lines of his abs while speaking utter nonsense. Listening to him attempt to speak in a high-pitched tone in that low and rough voice, Sasha felt like she was going to go mad. She yelled, "Shut the fuck up. Open hollow corner bracket sob. You're swearing at me now too. My girlish and delicate heart is hurt." Laplace's words weren't convincing at all with the veins and muscles nearly popping through his skin. Shut up. Who are you calling girlish and delicate? You look like you chew bones for fun. You don't even have a gender. Open hollow corner bracket oh my. This is what an appearance-based society has come to. This girlish heart is pained. I didn't raise you that way, hubby. Ah, stop calling me, hubby. Sasha tore her hair out and shouted. What is that? Eek. Gee ghosts. There are so many ghosts. Isn't that a pervert? Shin Sung-chan and the staff members belatedly ran out into the hallway and turned surprised. After a moment later, Shin Sung-chan gathered his bearings and quickly stepped forward. I have to save So Young. His only thought was that these mysterious ghosts might try to harm Sasha. The bald foreigner with bunny ears looked especially dangerous. Dash. Shin Sung-chan swallowed and moved in front of Sesha. Quote question mark quote. Quote question mark quote. Sesha and Park Yu-min tilted their heads in confusion. So young. I'll block them off. So run away. Shin Sung-chan shouted with a tense expression. Tremble, tremble. His legs wobbled as if he would topple over if left alone. But it was as if Sung-chan was filming some action movie on his own. The problem was that producer Kim and the other staff were busily recording everything on the cameras. Quick, roll the cameras. Those things are definitely monsters. This is a rare moment when we can see the idol fighting up close. We're going to get a bunch of good scenes. There was an apt word for situations like this, shitshow. I want to cry. Sesha covered her face with her hands. She didn't think she could show her face in public anymore because of the embarrassment. That damned pervert bunny ruined her life. An idol, who raised a perverted creature, she had maintained her indifferent and cold attitude to keep away the people who tried to take advantage of her young age, but it seemed she'd have to change her plans. Just then, Park Yu-min, who had been looking at Sesha mischievously, started pushing the staff back. Please step away, as it can be dangerous. Wait, but we need to film the monsters. Do you want to get hurt? There are even laws that civilians are forbidden from going near raids. You might be penalized for breaking the law. Is that okay? That's. Hey, Shin Sung-chan, you come over here too. But So Young is. A truckload of you couldn't protect So Young. You're just getting in the way, so get out of there. Or I'm really not gonna help you anymore. Shin Sung-chan hesitantly looked at Sesha and the statues. But when Park Yu-min narrowed her eyes, he retreated. Realizing they might become injured by the monsters, the staff also began to move as Yu-min ordered them to. Park Yu-min winked at Sesha. Why Yu-min? Sesha started to tear up because she was touched. But Yu-min suddenly began to mouth something. Ice cream. 1 month. Yu-min wasn't doing this for free. Sesha smiled bitterly. But to be honest, she could buy Yu-min as much of anything she wanted until she became sick of it. While the people began to return to the music room, Sesha whipped back to Laplace with a glowering expression. You're dead, pervert bunny. Swish. Sesha pulled out the weapon her father had gifted her some time ago. The bracelet she always wore on her right arm unraveled like silk and fell to the floor. It was a longsword that was 2 meters long. This weapon was infamous for being uncontrollable due to its elasticity that made it hard to predict the trajectory. However, Sesha already learned the skills for this weapon from Ananta, and this longsword was made of the same material as her father's trademark, the Dragon Slayer, which was adept at reading its owner's intent. That meant others could have trouble using this sword, but for Sesha, it was just an easily commanded weapon. Today, she was going to dismember that perverted bunny with this sword. With blazing eyes, Sesha flourished the longsword in Laplace's direction. Die. Swish. Caching. Caching. Open hollow corner bracket eeeeeeeeee. A high-pitched scream echoed. Open hollow corner bracket haa, haa, haa. Please continue to whip me like that. Please, please, please. Ah, go away, go away. Unfortunately, no matter what Sesha did, it didn't affect Laplace. Rather, Laplace stuck to her, begging her to punish him more, so she struggled with getting him off of her. The dolls and statues all ran away, scared. They escaped into their respective classrooms and peeked out with concern. It seemed they'd become friends with Laplace in that short while. Open hollow corner bracket kyahaha. No need to be so scared. Our little Miss Sesha is a great person. At that, the statues and dolls peeked out further, but they didn't dare approach. Ha, ha, ha. Damn it. Sesha gasped for breath and gritted her teeth furiously. Open hollow corner bracket oh my, little miss. How are you so weak? Sesha wanted to slap Laplace properly on the face just once. Laplace winked at the steaming Sesha. Open hollow corner bracket anyhow, please tell them, little miss. You don't have any plans of hurting them, right? Sesha frowned. She couldn't tell what Laplace was trying to do. Open hollow corner bracket please, come this way everyone. She may look like this on the outside, but she's actually quite nice. She'll play with us. At the word, play, the statues and dolls brightened. Now, their entire faces were peeking out. Sesha realized what Laplace was saying. They just wanted to play. Now that she thought about it, she didn't recall hearing of anyone who was ever hurt in the stories of the school's mystery. Usually, ghosts held grudges toward humans and tried to harm them. The statue of King Sejong seemed to be happy to see us at first, then it was upset when we were surprised. The statues and dolls appeared to be busy playing among themselves. The sounds of the piano weren't intended to scare people, but it was for the creatures to enjoy while having fun. Laplace was able to easily join them too. Sasha could feel the statues and dolls looking expectantly at her. In particular, the dolls seemed to be looking at her with sparkling eyes, as if asking how she was going to play with them. With all the gazes on her, there was only one thing Sasha could do here. She had come here to solve a mystery. Sasha sighed. So these guys just wanted to play. Open hollow corner bracket hoo. Yes, I'm just playing along with them. You seem to be enjoying yourself too much for that. Open hollow corner bracket goodness. You should do things properly if you're going to do them at all. Geez, whatever, shut up and clean up the mess you caused. Open hollow corner bracket hoo. Your friends are already all asleep. When they wake up, they'll forget everything that happened here, so don't worry. Sasha rubbed her throbbing temples. She felt like she aged 10 years today because of that smarmy pervert bunny. Open hollow corner bracket. You know you shouldn't talk about age in front of me, right? Sasha was so tired that she couldn't even muster the strength to tell Laplace to shut up. Tap tap. Sasha turned around with agitation, wondering who was trying to bother her this time. The bear doll that was perched on her shoulder jumped in surprise and fell to the ground. Sasha frantically caught the bear. The bear doll smiled in gratitude and held something out. It was a yellow handkerchief. For me, nod nod. The bear doll nodded. It seemed like it was telling Sasha to wipe her sweat. Thank you, shake shake. The bear doll shook its head from side to side, saying it was fine, and hopped down to the ground. Sasha felt strange wiping her sweat with the handkerchief the bear doll gave her, but still. They really are all nice. Laplace said they should play together, but Sasha hadn't really done anything. She just let herself be pulled away by the dolls and moved her upper body awkward in front of the dancing statues. But the creatures still enjoyed it a lot. With that, Sasha was able to realize they might seem like they were possessed by ghosts, but they were all very innocent and nice. And there's someone who's pulling the strings from behind. Open hollow corner bracket. It seems there's one very vengeful ghost at this school. Laplace's voice was solemn unlike before. A ghost? Open hollow corner bracket. Yes. According to our friends here, the ghost is a victim of bullying. The ghost was tormented by its classmates, and when it became severe, the few friends it had started to avoid it too. It has a grudge for not being able to play properly at school, so these children all became its friend. Sasha pressed her lips together. This was something that shouldn't be glossed over. Open hollow corner bracket. The problem is, although it has many friends now, it still suffers from the trauma from back then and doesn't come out easily. How about it? Will you meet with this ghost? Sasha immediately nodded. Side story chapter 32 Sasha 7. Laplace said he was going to eat them all up, but it was the audience that ate his stage up. He continued to pose like he was competing in a bodybuilder competition. The muscles beneath his copper skin squirmed like keys on a piano. Clap clap clap. The dolls and statues clapped wildly like they were fans who were meeting their favorite star. They weren't able to cheer because they lacked vocal cords, but some of them gestured as if they were shouting. What was Sasha supposed to do with that attention-seeking pervert? She wanted to find a hole and hide. If someone else saw him. So young. At the sudden voice, Sasha straightened her back like a cat and turned around. Park Yoo-min was looking at the pervert bunny and ghosts with a mystified expression. Oh right. Sasha had forgotten about it because of the pervert bunny, but Park Yoo-min was very fearless for a normal human being, and she was a very curious person. While Sasha had the upper hand over others, in front of Park Yoo-min, she was always the weaker one. She had been victim to Yoo-min's mischief too many times to count. That guy, I don't know him. What, but your shadow. Ha ha. I don't know what you're talking about. Why you must be seeing things. Ha. Before Park Yoo-min could say anything, Sasha quickly cut her off. Then, she began to ramble like a mindless robot. She was incredulous at how bad her own acting was. I'm done for. My life is over because of that pervert bunny. Sasha's heart sank as she saw Yoo-min's eyes narrow. Park Yoo-min's expression was full of interest and amusement, and it was when she was making faces like these that she was scariest. No matter what excuse Sasha made, it wouldn't work. Open hollow corner bracket sob. The pervert bunny was fanning the blazing red flames on top of that. Open hollow corner bracket. You're too cruel, hubby. You said you loved me, but you're tossing me aside because you're tired of having me around now. Laplace put his hands behind his head, showing off the clear lines of his abs while speaking utter nonsense. Listening to him attempt to speak in a high-pitched tone in that low and rough voice, Sasha felt like she was going to go mad. She yelled, "Shut the fuck up. Open hollow corner bracket sob sob. You're swearing at me now too. My girlish and delicate heart is hurt." Laplace's words weren't convincing at all, with the veins and muscles nearly popping through his skin. "Shut up. Who are you calling girlish and delicate? You look like you chew bones for fun. You don't even have a gender. Open hollow corner bracket, oh my. This is what an appearance-based society has come to. This girlish heart is pained. I didn't raise you that way, hubby. Ah, stop calling me, hubby." Sasha tore her hair out and shouted. What is that? Eek. Gee, ghosts. There are so many ghosts. Isn't that a pervert? Shin Sung-chan and the staff members belatedly ran out into the hallway and turned surprised. After a moment later, Shin Sung-chan gathered his bearings and quickly stepped forward. "I have to save So Young." His only thought was that these mysterious ghosts might try to harm Sasha. The bald foreigner with bunny ears looked especially dangerous. Shin Sung-chan swallowed and moved in front of Sasha. Quote. Sasha and Park Yu-min tilted their heads in confusion. So Young. I'll block them off. So run away. Shin Sung-chan shouted with a tense expression. Tremble. His legs wobbled as if he would topple over if left alone. But it was as if Sung-chan was filming some action movie on his own. The problem was that producer Kim and the other staff were busily recording everything on the cameras. Quick, roll the cameras. Those things are definitely monsters. This is a rare moment when we can see the idol fighting up close. We're going to get a bunch of good scenes. There was an apt word for situations like this, shitshow. I want to cry. Sasha covered her face with her hands. She didn't think she could show her face in public anymore because of the embarrassment. That damned pervert bunny ruined her life. An idol, who raised a perverted creature. She had maintained her indifferent and cold attitude to keep away the people who tried to take advantage of her young age, but it seemed she'd have to change her plans. Just then, Park Yu-min, who had been looking at Sasha mischievously, started pushing the staff back. Please step away, as it can be dangerous. Wait, but we need to film the monsters. Do you want to get hurt? There are even laws that civilians are forbidden from going near raids. You might be penalized for breaking the law. Is that okay? Hey, Shin Sung-chan, you come over here too. But So Young is. A truckload of you couldn't protect So Young. You're just getting in the way, so get out of there. Or I'm really not gonna help you anymore. Shin Sung-chan hesitantly looked at Sasha and the statues. But when Park Yu-min narrowed her eyes, he retreated. Realizing they might become injured by the monsters, the staff also began to move as Yu-min ordered them to. Park Yu-min winked at Sasha. Why Yu-min? Sasha started to tear up because she was touched. But Yu-min suddenly began to mouth something. Ice cream. 1 month. Yu-min wasn't doing this for free. Sasha smiled bitterly, but to be honest, she could buy Yu-min as much of anything she wanted until she became sick of it. While the people began to return to the music room, Sasha whipped back to Laplace with a glowering expression. You're dead, pervert bunny. Swish. Sasha pulled out the weapon her father had gifted her some time ago. The bracelet she always wore on her right arm unraveled like silk and fell to the floor. It was a longsword that was 2 meters long. This weapon was infamous for being uncontrollable due to its elasticity that made it hard to predict the trajectory. However, Sasha already learned the skills for this weapon from Ananta, and this longsword was made of the same material as her father's trademark, the Dragon Slayer, which was adept at reading its owner's intent. That meant others could have trouble using this sword, but for Sasha, it was just an easily commanded weapon. Today, she was going to dismember that perverted bunny with this sword. With blazing eyes, Sasha flourished the longsword in Laplace's direction. Die. Swish. Caching. Open hollow corner bracket eeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeee Ha, ha. Please continue to whip me like that. Please, please, please. Ah, go away, go away. Unfortunately, no matter what Sasha did, it didn't affect Laplace. Rather, Laplace stuck to her, begging her to punish him more, so she struggled with getting him off of her. The dolls and statues all ran away, scared. They escaped into their respective classrooms and peeked out with concern. It seemed they'd become friends with Laplace in that short while. Open hollow corner bracket kyahaha. No need to be so scared. Our little Miss Sasha is a great person. At that, the statues and dolls peeked out further, but they didn't dare approach. Ha! 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 Damn it! Sesha gasped for breath and gritted her teeth furiously. Open hollow corner bracket. Oh my, little miss. How are you so weak? Sesha wanted to slap Laplace properly on the face just once. Laplace winked at the steaming Sesha. Open hollow corner bracket. Anyhow, please tell them, little miss. You don't have any plans of hurting them, right? Sesha frowned. She couldn't tell what Laplace was trying to do. Open hollow corner bracket. Please, come this way everyone. She may look like this on the outside, but she's actually quite nice. She'll play with us. At the word, play, the statues and dolls brightened. Now, their entire faces were peeking out. Sesha realized what Laplace was saying. They just wanted to play. Now that she thought about it, she didn't recall hearing of anyone who was ever hurt in the stories of the school's mystery. Usually, ghosts held grudges toward humans and tried to harm them. The statue of King Sejong seemed to be happy to see us at first, then it was upset when we were surprised. The statues and dolls appeared to be busy playing among themselves. The sounds of the piano weren't intended to scare people, but it was for the creatures to enjoy while having fun. Laplace was able to easily join them too. Sesha could feel the statues and dolls looking expectantly at her. In particular, the dolls seemed to be looking at her with sparkling eyes, as if asking how she was going to play with them. With all the gazes on her, there was only one thing Sesha could do here. Ha! She had come here to solve a mystery. Sesha sighed. So these guys just wanted to play. Open hollow corner bracket. Hoo. Yes, I'm just playing along with them. You seem to be enjoying yourself too much for that. Open hollow corner bracket. Goodness. You should do things properly if you're going to do them at all. Geez, whatever, shut up and clean up the mess you caused. Open hollow corner bracket. Hoo. Your friends are already all asleep. When they wake up, they'll forget everything that happened here, so don't worry. Sesha rubbed her throbbing temples. She felt like she aged 10 years today because of that smarmy pervert bunny. Open hollow corner bracket. You know you shouldn't talk about age in front of me, right? Sesha was so tired that she couldn't even muster the strength to tell Laplace to shut up. Tap tap. Sesha turned around with agitation, wondering who was trying to bother her this time. The bear doll that was perched on her shoulder jumped in surprise and fell to the ground. Sesha frantically caught the bear. The bear doll smiled in gratitude and held something out. It was a yellow handkerchief. For me, nod nod. The bear doll nodded. It seemed like it was telling Sesha to wipe her sweat. Thank you. Shake shake. The bear doll shook its head from side to side, saying it was fine, and hopped down to the ground. Sesha felt strange wiping her sweat with the handkerchief the bear doll gave her, but still. They really are all nice. Laplace said they should play together, but Sesha hadn't really done anything. She just let herself be pulled away by the dolls and moved her upper body awkward in front of the dancing statues. But the creatures still enjoyed it a lot. With that, Sesha was able to realize they might seem like they were possessed by ghosts, but they were all very innocent and nice. And there's someone who's pulling the strings from behind. Open hollow corner bracket. It seems there's one very vengeful ghost at this school. Laplace's voice was solemn unlike before. A ghost? Open hollow corner bracket. Yes. According to our friends here, the ghost is a victim of bullying. The ghost was tormented by its classmates, and when it became severe, the few friends it had started to avoid it too. It has a grudge for not being able to play properly at school, so these children all became its friend. Sesha pressed her lips together. This was something that shouldn't be glossed over. Open hollow corner bracket. The problem is, although it has many friends now, it still suffers from the trauma from back then and doesn't come out easily. How about it? Will you meet with this ghost? Sesha immediately nodded. Side story chapter 33. Sesha 8. Where do we have to go? Sesha didn't ponder for too long. After the day of the beginning, there were many people on Earth with pitiful situations, and Sesha always stood on the front lines listening to their stories. If there was anything she learned, it was that those people shouldn't be neglected just because you were busy. Moreover, the cause behind this phenomenon was someone who was around Sesha's age. Her heart went out to the ghost. But strangely, Laplace was grinning widely, as if he was proud of her. What? Why are you smiling so pervertedly again? Open hollow corner bracket. Perverted. I'm smiling because I'm very proud of your pity. Being complimented by you doesn't make me happy at all. Open hollow corner bracket. Hoo. So shy. I'm not. Open hollow corner bracket. Hoo. Hey. Sesha only became angrier after hearing the laughter of the pervert bunny. Of course, Laplace didn't seem affected at all. These friends will guide us. Please wait a moment. He smiled and began to whisper something to the skeleton and dolls. It was a language Sasha didn't understand. However, the skeleton and dolls seemed to have understood, because they all made surprised faces. The skeleton just widened its jaw and waved at Sasha. Rattle, rattle, open hollow corner bracket. They say this is the first time someone's been so nice, and that they're grateful someone so generous as their friend. Hoo. I get it. Just tell them to lead the way. Open hollow corner bracket. So very shy. Ha. Open hollow corner bracket. Then friends, please begin. Rattle, rattle. The skeleton nodded first and stepped forward. The statues of King Sejong and Yi Sun Sin followed him. They're all coming. Didn't the ghost stay hidden even though it had a lot of friends? Wasn't it staying hidden because it didn't like being around too many people? Was it okay to go in a horde like this? Wouldn't it just hide deeper? All kinds of thoughts filled Sasha's head. However, she had no choice but to follow them as they pulled her along. The dolls around her legs looked at her expectantly with sparkling eyes, urging her to move. Sasha smiled wryly. Moving statues and a skeleton that was alive was something straight out of a mystery horror story, but with these cute dolls, she was reminded of Toy Story. The ghost kid, a victim of school bullying, would probably be nice if these dolls were its friends. No, this is probably Night at the Museum, not Toy Story. While Sasha followed her train of thought, the skeleton walked forward confidently. They climbed several flights of stairs and passed through hallways to arrive at the third floor, which was mostly used by the second years. Was the ghost a second year? Sasha was able to glean more information from Laplace about the ghost as they continued forward. Open hollow corner bracket. According to our friends here, the ghost has a very pure soul. Open hollow corner bracket. Her name is Min Chai Young. Open hollow corner bracket. Our friends say their standards for beauty are different from humans, so they can't tell, but according to what the other humans said, she was very pretty too. Of course, it was nothing compared to her inner beauty. When the school bell rang at midnight, the ghost always appeared at the same place and moved to a specific classroom. She stayed inside the classroom and only came out when it was 6 in the morning. It had been several months since she started this routine. This was probably the reason why there were so many witnesses. But the horror stories hadn't been spread too far because it had been summer vacation and school only started back up recently. However, the statues and dolls agreed that the rumors would become more widespread at this rate. Open hollow corner bracket. Our ghost friend was apparently a student who attended this school. But she was always gloomy, so she didn't have many friends. And the few friends she had were kids who had other intentions in mind. After the bullying started, she practically had no one. None of the teachers stepped up despite knowing. Even her parents were trash. Her mom remarried, but then she ran away, so Chai Young was left with her stepfather. I suppose it was very hard for her in many aspects. Sasha's eyes darkened as Laplace continued. We're in the 21st century too. Sasha didn't usually get mad and could care less about what happened in the world, but everything about Chai Young's story frustrated her. Chai Young had no one on her side and no one to depend on. The entire world must have seemed like a cage to her. Sasha knew too well what that was like. However, at the very least, she had a family. She had her mother and grandfather, to whom she was very grateful, and her dependable father and uncle. Her grandmother too. They were all the fences who kept her safe. Sasha had been hurt so many times when she was young, but she was able to stand tall again thanks to her family. That was what a family was. A place where you could always come back to rest after being torn and shredded by rough waves and winds. But if your family was the cause of the pain, what were you supposed to do then? That was Min Chai Young's situation. She probably felt like she was alone in the world without anywhere to depend on. She likely felt like she was pushed toward the edge of a psychological cliff. And in the end, she wasn't able to take it anymore. A part of Sasha wondered if it was okay for her to be listening to this. This might be a part of Chai Young's past that she didn't want to reveal. No, it definitely was. Sasha hadn't told Park Yoo-min about her past either. Someday if a time came when she and Park Yoo-min could share everything, she would do it then. Right now, she couldn't muster the courage to do so. After all, she didn't like expressing herself. However, Laplace was very firm in response to Sasha's question, which was out of character for him. No, you must know. Even if you end up forgetting, you need to know a part of it. Why? Open hollow corner bracket. Because then, you'll be able to understand. Understand? Open hollow corner bracket. Do you remember what I said? About how horror stories come to be? You said people's vestiges come together. Open hollow corner bracket vestiges are toxic poisons. If they aren't detoxified, they'll just result in innocent victims. That's why I'm saying you need to understand. Vestiges are created when hate and resentment continue to stack up without being vented anywhere. Quote, open hollow corner bracket. It might be hypocritical, but those people probably just want to hear kind words and receive warm embraces. Genuine words. That's true. Open hollow corner bracket. Of course, even if you step up now, you won't be able to satisfy her grudges. She might even be angry that you know her embarrassing past. Still, you need to hug her. Most people like her are people who wanted to receive help but can't bring themselves to ask for it. Laplace's words were deep and made Sasha think. She nodded and looked at Laplace strangely, which made Laplace chuckle. Hoo, why are you looking at me like that? Just cause. This is the first time you said something normal. Open hollow corner bracket. What are you talking about? You won't find a more normal, cute and adorable bunny like me. You mean perverted bunny. Open hollow corner bracket. Ha. Sasha erased the brownie points she had given Laplace. Open hollow corner bracket. Oh right, there's something you must beware of when meeting our ghost friend. What? Open hollow corner bracket. There are two, in fact. First, they say she's scared of thunder and lightning. Sasha nodded but didn't ask why. The ghost probably had some trauma related to it. And the other? Open hollow corner bracket. They say it's as if she's waiting for someone. Who? Open hollow corner bracket. Our friends don't know. She just sits in the dark room alone, looking outside. She looks like she's longing for something or waiting for someone to come find her, according to our friends. Sasha nodded silently. She thought the ghost was probably waiting for a friend. The ghost had made the school into a playground because she wanted friends in the first place. It was possible she was waiting for that friend to come back so they could hang out together. I wonder who it is. Just then, the skeleton stopped walking. It was class 6 of the second years. Rattle, rattle, the creature shook its hands and feet as if it wanted to say something. Fortunately, Laplace interpreted for the skeleton. It says it can't go in from here. Why? Open hollow corner bracket. She doesn't mind when our friends wander around near here, but she hides when they try to meet her. Hoo. She must be a shy friend like you. Sasha ignored Laplace because nothing good would come out of refuting him anyway. Instead, she approached the classroom and stood on her toes to peek through the windows of the class. There she is. There really was a student wearing a school uniform inside the class. She was a short and lithe child. Her hair was covered with messy short hair that obscured her face. And like Laplace said, she was looking out the window, as if she was waiting for someone. She looks like any other high schooler. I don't feel anything from her in particular. Sasha thought this ghost might have something special about it since it had managed to hide from Laplace, but she looked just like any other human being. Her paranormal energy was normal too. Rather, she seemed like she would easily be blown away by the wind. Sasha looked at her for a while like that, and the ghost turned to her, feeling her gaze. Sasha flinched in surprise, but she didn't hide. She wanted to observe the ghost a while longer. However, the ghost uncomfortably tried to get up and disappear. Sasha couldn't lose the ghost. She quickly opened the door and shouted, "Wait!" Flinch. The ghost trembled in surprise and looked at Sasha with shaking eyes. She slowly crept behind the desks. She's scared of me. Sasha realized why the ghost disappeared when statues and dolls approached her. She was scared. She thought the creatures might try to hurt her. Sasha bit her lower lip. The ghost was a grade higher than her, but she was so thin. It was hard to fathom everything she had been through. I'm not going to hurt you. Really. There's just something I want to ask you. Sasha attempted to take a few steps forward, but she stopped when she saw the ghost slowly inching back. Instead, she tried to persuade her. I heard you come here every night. Can I ask why? I understand it might be hard for you to talk to me since you've never seen me before, but I want to help. The ghost was silent for a moment. She just looked at Sasha, ready to escape at a moment's notice. Sasha just thought it was a relief that the ghost wasn't escaping. It was their first time meeting anyway. It was more important to slowly close the distance. Plop. Sasha sat down on the floor, surprising the ghost. Sasha grinned. I'm just gonna sit here, so pretend I'm not here and do your thing. Tell me when you want to talk. Okay. Then I'll take it. You're okay with this? Thanks. They had all the time in the world anyway. Sasha intended on staying here the entire night until the ghost opened her mouth. If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then the day after that. 1 month, 1 year. If she continued to come to find her like this every day, the ghost would gradually open up. The goodwill of other people was probably foreign to the ghost anyway. Her heart was frozen even to the adorable dolls. To melt, it would require a lot of time. Good thing I have that spell I learned from Grandpa last time. I can spend time researching that. Sesha drew a magic circle in the air and began to fiddle with it. The ghost Min Chai Young stared at Sesha. Sesha reminded her of someone who used to come to school at 6 in the morning and say hi to her. Side Story Chapter 34 Sesha 9. Peek. Min Chai Young took the occasional glance behind the classroom. Although Sesha had told her not to mind what she was doing, she noticed that Sesha was extremely focused on something. Whoosh! A magic circle floated at her fingers and a fire was created. Min Chai Young subconsciously flinched at the fire, in case it would suddenly be directed at her. However, the orange flame continued to change from blue, white, yellow, black, and a bunch of other colors in Sesha's hands. It was so pretty that Chai Young unwittingly felt herself being pulled toward it. Belatedly, Min Chai Young caught her mistake and shook her head from side to side, turning back to looking at the window again. It's so uncomfortable. Usually, this classroom was a space of her own at night, but a stranger had suddenly burst in. Naturally, she couldn't help but be curious about what they were doing. Her own personal time had disappeared. So uncomfortable. When she was alive, Min Chai Young found it uncomfortable and difficult to speak to other people. Her biological mother blamed her poor fate on her daughter, and her stepfather looked at her with dirty eyes and beat her up on the nights he returned home drunk. Growing up in such a family environment, Min Chai Young was always hurt somewhere, and she didn't want to show others her injured face, so she began to stay away from people. When she realized she also wanted to hang out with friends, it was too late. She couldn't approach them first, as she didn't know how to make friends, and she was being bullied at school, so she didn't have the opportunity. From then, Min Chai Young started becoming scared just to have someone in the same space as her. No one knew when they might suddenly change and start to attack. The world was filled with fearful and harmful things she needed to avoid. Then, when she opened her eyes as a ghost, she was happy that she didn't have to live in fear anymore. Min Chai Young's classmates, stepfather, and biological mother were still all alive in this world. However, they couldn't recognize her presence any longer, nor could they interfere in her life. She was separated from the rest of the world like some isolated island. Some people might think it lonely, but it tasted like freedom to Min Chai Young. At first, she skipped around everywhere in joy, and she even roamed around the school at night. But after some time, a certain thought occurred to her. She wanted to see someone. The boy who always greeted her early in the morning, the boy who continued to say hi even though she never said hi back. A friend. Yes, he was her friend, at least, to Min Chai Young. Would he remember me? Min Chai Young didn't know how much time had passed since then. As a ghost, her sense of time was a lot different from people who were alive now. It seemed a lot of time had passed from the point in time when she died to when she turned into a ghost though. The day of the beginning, magic, and skills, were all alien to her. So her friend had probably forgotten about her at this point too. Unlike her, he worked hard in school, so he probably graduated, started college, got a job, and he might even have kids. Or maybe he's a grandfather. Perhaps he didn't consider Min Chai Young a friend and put her in his past the moment he graduated. Whatever the case, it was almost impossible for him to find her. Even if he happened to want to visit his old high school, he would probably come in the day, but she woke up at night, so it was unlikely for them to meet. Even if she was lucky and they did meet, there was a chance he couldn't recognize her since she was a ghost. The most likely option is that I'll never see him again. Min Chai Young didn't get her hopes high from the beginning. Still, there was a single reason why she continued to stay here waiting for him. Since it's a good memory. Even if time passed and she wasn't able to maintain her ghost body, she wanted to cherish this memory forever. And if possible, a small part of Min Chai Young continued to hope despite thinking it was impossible. I want to tell him no matter what. There were words she wanted to say to him but wasn't able to. So although Sesha's actions were a bit uncomfortable, she reminded Min Chai Young of that boy, so she didn't dislike her. Wow, this is really hard. Sesha sweated the entire time she was researching the spell Kronos taught her. She was born with enormous potential to sense and control mana because she was born with dragon blood, but this spell was trickier than she thought. He said this is ancient magic that the Nephilim used in the Golden Ages. This is really beyond imagination. The Nephilim were an ancient race born between the first members of Malak and L'infernal and humans, but they were known to have disappeared. Their massive size was reminiscent of giants, but they had wings on their backs. The magic they used was entirely different from the magic of the dragons, so it was difficult to pick it up. However, after she fumbled around with it a bit, she could use the spell, Nephilim Spark, somewhat. I did spend an entire fortnight working on this, after all. It had already been 2 weeks since Sesha came to visit Min Chai Young at night. At first, Min Chai Young didn't seem to care that much because she didn't think Sesha would give up soon, but she was starting to seem affected. Yesterday, she seemed a bit upset when I was later than normal. Min Chai Young seemed to think she was keeping a poker face, but Sesha could read all her expressions. It was amusing watching all her actions and faces. She was so pure that Sesha thought her soul couldn't be any clearer. Sesha didn't understand why such a person had gone through so much pain. If that had happened to me, I wouldn't have left anyone untouched. The show that was being filmed when she first met Min Chai Young was now being finished up. Producer Kim and the staff wondered why they had suddenly fainted in the middle of the night, but they didn't seem to think too much about it with Laplace's magic. That pervert bunny is still the same as ever too. Laplace was now best friends with the statues and dolls. He was busily dancing with them every night, and sometimes he seemed sad not to be able to stay at school longer. Open hollow corner bracket kyahaha. Correct, you have to flex exactly at this position for my biceps to be shown clearer, and it's very cute this way. You try it too. 1, 2, 1, 2. Can the lighting team turn the lights brighter, and the music team play the piano faster? Alright, everyone get sprayed with pop. Although Laplace's parties were a bit strange, Sesha had no intention of ever participating. But it's a bit weird. Then, a question suddenly occurred to her. The reason why Laplace wasn't able to discover the strange phenomenon, is it really because of Chai Young? Laplace said there were traces of something having cleaned the vestiges up. If they had managed to hide from him, it meant their actions were secretive to accomplish such a thing. Whoever did it had to be quite powerful. Based on what Sesha observed of Min Chai Young, she wasn't someone to be able to do such a thing. The mysterious being behind all this needed to be at least a ghost with some divinity, but Min Chai Young couldn't even transform into a common poltergeist. Is there something about Chai Young that even she doesn't know about? Or, just when Sesha was about to speculate deeper, she jumped at the sudden voice. Open corner bracket, this is magic. Min Chai Young was slightly bent over, looking at the Nephilim spark in Sesha's hands. Sesha couldn't tell if it was because of the fire, but her face seemed red. Was it difficult for her to start a conversation after pretending not to notice her all this time? Chai Young had an expressionless face, but she seemed to be taking peeks at how Sesha was reacting. So cute. Sesha had to contain her laughter that was threatening to come out. For some reason, Chai Young reminded her of her youngest aunt, Yi Yoon, who was now about 100 days old. She knew if she said that though, the door that had barely opened would be shut again. Sesha nodded without looking at Chai Young, so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Yep, it is. Open corner bracket, are you a magician? Something similar. To be exact, Sesha wasn't a magician but a member of a magical race. Open corner bracket, are you good at it? Probably. Open corner bracket, by how much? I'm probably one of the strongest in the world. Open corner bracket, don't lie. It's not good to lie. Min Chai Young scolded Sesha. She hated lying the most in the world because her mother and stepfather had always lied to her. However, Sesha cleared her throat and stood taller. I'm serious. Open corner bracket, what? Do you know what players are? Open corner bracket, no. There are these things called players, although it's pretty much non-existent now. I was always in the top 10 among them. Open corner bracket, really? Chai Young seemed disbelieving. Really? Technically, since her family members were diving beings and not players, Sesha wasn't wrong. As if to prove her point, Sesha flicked her finger in the air, and the world around them changed. They were in a hot desert, a cold ice cap, and then on a sea that reflected the galaxy. Open corner bracket, whoa. The beautiful scenes Min Chai Young used to see on television swept right in front of her. She couldn't believe this was real. No, she didn't mind even if this was an illusion. It was magical just to be able to experience this. Do you believe me now? Open corner bracket, yeah. Min Chai Young nodded like a possessed person, then saw Sesha beaming at her and she quickly spun around. Her flushed face indicated she realized how intense her reaction had been. She seemed to be embarrassed. Then, as if she suddenly thought of something, Chai Young glanced at Sesha and muttered quietly, 2. Open corner bracket, could I do this too? Sasha grinned. Of course. I'll teach you. Open corner bracket, really? Yep. Open corner bracket, why? Min Chae-young wanted to ask why Sasha was being so nice when they barely knew each other. Why? Open corner bracket, you have no reason to help me. Why don't I have a reason? Is it strange to want to teach my friend something? Min Chae-young turned surprised. A friend? Yeah, aren't we friends? We have been together for 2 weeks. Min Chae-young's pupils began to shake. What? Friends? Were they? They'd been together. Since when? Was she talking about how they were together in the same space for 2 weeks? Chae-young couldn't organize her thoughts because of the confusing information. Min Chae-young was so cute and innocent that Sasha couldn't stop smiling. Is she really a year older than me? Why is she so naive? Min Chae-young would have turned even redder if she knew what Sasha was thinking. Sasha grinned. Open corner bracket T then. Yeah, go on. Open corner bracket I, if I learn this, can I him? I didn't catch all of that. Can you repeat yourself? Open corner bracket I, if I learn this, can I find him? Finally, now that Min Chae-young has opened her heart, Sasha smiled warmly. Who do you want to find? Your first crush. Open corner bracket N, nothing like that. Min Chae-young's face was on the verge of exploding now. Then, open corner bracket AA friend close corner bracket. Min Chae-young fiddled her fingers. Her voice became smaller and was pitiful at this point. Sasha felt like she was becoming more like Park Yoo-min. And his name, open corner bracket Sun. Just when Min Chae-young hesitantly spoke up, Laplace suddenly shouted and broke down the door to get into the classroom. Little miss, get down. Sasha instinctively grabbed Min Chae-young's hand and pulled her deeper inside the classroom, looking out the window. Crash! Bright yellow lightning was suddenly falling from the dark sky. To be exact, it was falling exactly on the school. It wasn't a natural phenomenon at all. Open corner bracket Ah. Oh right, there's something you must beware of when meeting our ghost friend. What? There are two, in fact. First, they say she's scared of thunder and lightning. Min Chae-young shut her eyes tight and screamed. The lightning struck down the school building and broke the glass windows and walls. The desks were blown back by the aftershocks. It was a great impact that almost destroyed the building, but Sasha and Min Chae-young were fine thanks to the barrier Laplace created. However, Min Chae-young was trembling. Sasha soothed her while shooting a sharp glance outside the window. She could see a man with long black hair standing in front of Laplace. His skin was very pale, and his narrowed eyes were reminiscent of a scorpion's. Finally found you. The man's gaze was fixed on Min Chae-young. Star Fragment. Side Story Chapter 35 Star Fragment 1. Stars Fragment. Sasha gulped. She did not understand what the man meant. However, she was sure that the man was after Min Chae-young. The issue was that the energy emanating from the man was formidable. Who was that person? After Yi and Wu took away the system on Earth, the players who derived their powers from the system had to return to their normal lives. Though, it was said that many divine beings still observed Earth with interest since the Black King's true body, Relia, was assumed to still be on the planet. Even so, with Yi and Wu observing everything, there was no divine being that was foolish enough to invade Earth. Apart from that fact, Kronos and Rhea were also present on Earth. The two had regained their powers of their glory years. Moreover, if anything should happen on Earth, Olympus would also mobilize, so Earth was essentially a neutral zone, or to be more exact, a protected magic realm. It may be easy for one to step in, but if one made a mistake, even a creation god or great god would perish. However, such an existence had made an appearance on Earth. And this existence was a black-haired man, who obviously exuded great power. For Sasha, who had not yet achieved exuviation, the man's pressure was suffocating. If Laplace had not stepped in to protect her, she would have likely fallen into danger. Moreover, the man had approached her so stealthily that Yi and Wu did not seem to even notice. The same went for Laplace and Kronos. The distance from Sasha's school to her home was quite a bit, but for Kronos, that should not have been much of a problem. Thus, Sasha knew, it's that man, the one who erased the vestiges at my school. It was clear that this man had deceived Laplace's senses. Shake, and Min Chae-young, whom Sasha held in her arms, kept trembling like a baby bird shivering in the cold. What had happened to Chae-young on the day the thunder and lightning struck to make her react this way? However, without caring about Min Chae-young's reaction, the man reached out with his hand. He did not care that Sasha and Laplace were in his way. Bam! Just before a light started shining from the man's fingertips, Laplace grabbed the man's wrist with his large hand. The man quietly turned his gaze to Laplace. He glanced at his wrist and at Laplace while narrowing his eyes. Who are you? Open hollow corner bracket ohoho. You're asking the very question I want to ask you. SS is. Laplace was smiling, but Sasha knew that Laplace had gotten angry. Laplace's rabbit shadow had widened its mouth. The serrated teeth of Laplace's shadow could easily be seen. Open hollow corner bracket. Who the hell are you to attack our cute little Sasha? Are you going to answer, you ugly man? I am the collector. The man's voice was calm. A person who collects fragments. Open hollow corner bracket HMPF. There are crazy people everywhere. As soon as Laplace finished speaking rumble, Laplace's shadow extended its black tentacles and swept a strong gale towards the man. The wind was like an interstellar wind that blew between the stars in the deep universe. The light contained within it was like the starlight embedded in the night sky. However, contrary to its beautiful appearance, the result of the collision was anything but beautiful. A powerful shockwave blew up the classroom in an instant. Chai-young, run! Sasha knew what she had to do. She grabbed Min Chai-young's hand and dragged her down the hallway. Boom, 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 bam, bam. The clash between Laplace and the man shook the entire school. It seemed as if the school would collapse at any moment. A row of windows in the hallway shattered and broke one after another. The classroom door was swept away by the strong wind and smashed the window on the opposite side of the classroom's hallway. As a result, pieces of desks and stools became deadly weapons as they started flying all over the place. The classroom's walls collapsed, and pieces of the ceiling started falling. It was as if a violent earthquake had wreaked havoc on the site. In addition, with strong winds constantly blowing out, Sasha found it difficult to run while holding on to Chai-young. However, Sasha knew that this level of wind and destruction was already lessened as a consideration for their safety. Originally, beings like Laplace and the man would not have cared about the school and would have blown it into pieces without a second thought. If they truly fought, a large part of Earth itself would have been destroyed. Of course, if that happened, Sasha and Min Chai-young would have disappeared without leaving a trace. Hence, Laplace was controlling his power level. One part of his power was used against the man while another was being used to protect Sasha and the others. Laplace did this because his mission was to protect Sasha. However, there was something that Sasha could not understand. Even if Laplace was dividing his power, he was still one of the 8 gods of disorder. However, Laplace was not able to easily kill the man. What the hell was the man's identity? Sasha was unable to continue with her train of thought for long. Rattle, rattle. The skeleton model in the hallway was waving its hand urgently and shouting something. At the same time, some statues were rushing towards this place. What? Sasha anxiously turned her head back. SS's. Through the shattered and scattered rubble, Sasha saw 2 shadows quickly approaching her. She realized intuitively that they were not Laplace's shadows. Additionally, they were not the man's, they were separate beings. Thinking that she would be overtaken at this rate, Sasha tried to untie the lotus sword that was wrapped around her wrist. However, the statue of Yi Sun-sin and a stone statue of King Seung quickly caught up to Sasha. For a brief moment, the 2 statues' eyes met Sasha's. You guys. Sasha was able to hear the 2's voices. Run away. We'll try to run interference. Sasha wanted to say that they would not be able to stop the man. No matter how mysterious an origin the 2 possessed, they were not divine beings. They were just monster existences that would be no match against the man. However, the Yi Sun-sin statue seemed to state that it was fine. It smiled brightly and pulled its sword out of its sheath. It was a mere stone sword, but for some mysterious reason, Sasha felt that the sword was swarmed in light. The ruler's heavenly oath, moving mountains and rivers. Clearing with one move, dyeing the mountains and rivers with blood. The phrases written on the sword came into Sasha's eyes. I swear by this stone sword that the mountains and rivers shall tremble, and with one swing, I shall defeat my enemy and dye the mountains and rivers in blood. The statue of Yi Sun-sin smashed the ground with his long sword. Boom, rumble. The explosion shook the school building once more. While Yi Sun-sin's statue was taking this action, the stone statue of King Seung seemed to say, "Don't worry," as it winked. King Seung's statue supported the statue of Yi Sun-sin, and subsequently, the many skeleton models and various lesser statues started piling up and creating an artificial wall. Damn it! Sasha clenched her jaw. She felt a scorching heat pierce the tip of his nose, and it was soon accompanied by a pungent smoke. The two statues had tried their best, but in the end, they were not able to hold out for long. Open corner bracket no. Min Chae-young clenched her jaw as she looked at the scene. The death of her friends, who she had befriended and wandered the hallway with together, awakened the consciousness she had been unable to regain due to her traumatic experience. She had not even had the opportunity to have a proper conversation with them. She would not be able to even thank them, although being locked up in the classroom, the two statue existences had given their lives for her. Open hollow corner bracket it's annoying that you're constantly running away. At that time, Sesha and Min Chae-young abruptly stopped in the middle of the stairway as a shadow popped up in front of them. One of the two shadows that was chasing after them had just caught up with them. As the shadow lifted, a middle-aged man with red hair was revealed. Open hollow corner bracket ha ha ha. You have nowhere to go now. From behind, the second shadow arrived and lifted its veil. It turned into a woman with an alluring smile. Child, the woman spoke aloud like a human, and she gave a human-like smile. However, Sesha did not miss the chilling killing intent hidden in the woman's playful eyes. The woman spoke, "Give me what you have in your hand. If you do that, I'll let you go. You're not our target in the first place. We have no intention of making a fuss. You don't need to care for such a cumbersome and disturbing child, right? It's not even a living person." The woman nodded after the middle-aged man spoke. Min Chae-young's gaze trembled. If she was in Sesha's shoes, she knew that she would choose to give her up. However, whoosh, Sesha untied her lotus sword from her wrist. The roughly 2.5 meter lotus sword extended itself across the ground as Sesha firmly gripped its handle. With her other hand, Sesha held firmly onto Min Chae-young's hand. "I won't leave you. I'll protect you somehow. Open corner bracket but, I've already made up my mind. Don't say anything else." Whoosh, a magic circle formed under Sesha's feet and shot up white flames that wrapped around her before clinging to her lotus sword. The flames were the Nephilim's fire, a skill that she recently started learning from Kronos. I don't know if this'll work, but it was Sesha's first time using the skill outside of practice, so she was not sure she could properly pull off the skill. However, in order to contend with the divine beings in front of her, she had to use the most effective magic skill she knew, and no matter how much she thought, this skill was the only thing that came to her mind. If I had known this would happen, I would have paid closer attention and learned it properly when grandfather tried to teach me. Sesha regretted neglecting to learn magic for the past year or so. She had thought that Earth would be relatively safe. Of course, even if she had trained properly, she probably would still be no match for the foes in front of her or reach exuviation from her training. However, at this moment, Sesha wanted whatever help she could get. "So, you're going to fight even though you don't have to?" The middle-aged man smiled coldly. "If that's your wish, I will grant what you seek, foolish child." In an instant, the world surrounding the middle-aged man changed. Sesha and Min Chae-young were also sucked into the middle-aged man's space. Whoosh, it was a world full of darkness. Not a single point of light could be seen. Sesha's expression hardened. She noticed that this was the man's illusory world, his holy territory. "This place again. Ah, it's so dark and gloomy here. Can't you try to change it and make something else?" The woman seemed to be very familiar with this place. She grumbled and complained as if she was sick of the space. Yet, a corner of her mouth rose, expressing her cruel thoughts and intentions. Darkness Sphere was a place completely isolated from the outside, so whatever happened within could not be observed from outside. Sesha recognized that she was in a holy territory, but in fact, this space was slightly different from a normal holy territory. This holy territory was a star field. The starlight here shined brighter than starlight from anywhere else. Therefore, fighting outside the star field was burdensome for these two existences. As for Earth, if Earth was exposed to this starlight, it would melt away. Although Earth's solar system sun was not the largest of all stars, if one got too close, the sun would eventually melt whatever came near, even a planet like Earth. However, there was no need to worry about that in the star field. Moreover, the two would not have to worry about the King of Gods couple finding them. The middle-aged man, also known as the Southern Arrow, or Cerita, smiled broadly. Side Story Chapter 36 Star Fragment 2. Star was a part of a constellation, and they called themselves by these names. They themselves could not recall when they started calling each other by these names. They called themselves with these names ever since they realized that they were different from others. Like the starlights that filled the evening sky, they said that they also shined brightly. Moreover, they were such shining existences. The southern arrow was one such star. He was originally a chieftain who ruled over a primitive tribe. He lived in a jungle where the trees were so dense that it was hard to tell what was ahead, and every step one took, one would only see muddy swampland. From an early age, he boasted unparalleled strength, agility, and a physical build with innate muscles that were incomparable to others. Because of this, all those he faced as enemies were steeped in fear and trembled when they confronted him. In battle, he would suddenly disappear. He would torment enemies by shooting out poisoned stingers between large boulders, whipping with vines from the tops of trees, and setting traps on the ground, where an enemy would fall and be pierced by spears. For this reason, everyone was reluctant to confront the tribe whose chieftain was known as the Southern Arrow. No, it was more correct to say that there was no confrontation at all. His enemies knew that once they collided, only death would welcome them. The Southern Arrow is always followed, like a person's shadow, by the god of death. It was not unreasonable that such rumors circulated. The jungle's various tribes, who feared spirits and gods, were naturally fearful of such an existence, and within a few years, the hundreds of jungle tribes were soon united into one under the Southern Arrow. Once united, an empire was born. The empire terrorized the civilized people living in the southern regions for decades. Southern Arrow's vigorous conquest did not stop there. As if conquest was his fate, the Southern Arrow constantly sent out his tribesmen to the outside to expand his empire's territory. They moved out of the jungle, into the grasslands, into the deserts, and even into the glacial territories. They consolidated the area where the so-called non-civilized people lived and crossed the barrier that had previously restricted them. Countless civilizations collapsed, many kings' heads were snagged, palaces burnt, and screams and groans echoed throughout the plundered capitals. Many tried to block the Southern Arrow, but no one was able to stop him. Then, he took over the last capital of the last remaining empire. In the end, Southern Arrow sat down on the throne, which was made from the corpses of the previous emperor and imperial family who claimed that they were descendants of heaven and who had looked down on everything in the whole world. Then, the Southern Arrow had stumbled upon a treasure that the previous emperor cherished. It was an imperial jade seal. The jade seal was as white as snow, sparkled like gold, and contained a blood-like red hue. It was a royal seal that contained all the attributes of omen, ecstasy, and sacredness. The previous emperor had said that it was an ornament that symbolized the imperial family from generation to generation. The story was that one day, the founder of the empire had a dream, and a mysterious old man appeared and disappeared, leaving behind only the words, "Your hand will restore the light of the world." The founder, who woke up from the strange dream, felt that something was off, so he went outside and saw a meteor fall from the night sky. He decided that he had received a heavenly command, so he made a seal from the piece of fallen meteor and began to gather soldiers as a gift for the sacred object. This was the creation legend of how the empire originated. Moreover, the jade seal possessed indescribable qualities and accomplished various miracles, such as healing the wounded, allowing the lame to walk, and opening the eyes of the blind. However, the Southern Arrow realized something as soon as he saw the jade seal. Stupid people, this jade seal was like pearls on a swine in their hands. How could they not know what treasure they possessed? The jade seal was being misused. It had to be used for something bigger, a larger purpose, not as a charm to heal people and keep the royal family healthy. It had to be used for something greater. It was a treasure that must be used to reach heights that seemed impossible for humans and their limitations. Thus, Southern Arrow killed all the members of the royal family who shouted for the imperial jade seal to be returned and took over the royal throne within a day. Rather than simply carrying the jade seal around, and in order to fully digest the power contained within the jade seal, Southern Arrow put the jade seal in the safest place he knew, his own stomach. The Southern Arrow's judgment proved to be accurate. His eyes opened. He was able to see not only the great empire he had built, but also the realms beyond his territories. There were all kinds of rare things in the world. He learned about the existence of a huge salt lake and the existence of other continents that were as big as the continent he ruled over. It was only then that Southern Arrow realized, for the first time, that if he went to the endless north, a night as white as broad daylight would appear. Southern Arrow also realized that he was on a planet called Quan, a speck of dust in a seemingly endless expanse of darkness. The sensation that came after realizing all this was pure bliss. It was only then that he realized how narrow he had viewed the world. His vision and his thoughts had been limited. Ordinary people would feel frustrated or helpless at the fact that they were insignificant in such a situation. However, the Southern Arrow had smacked his lips and thought, "I want all of it." Like the stars that shine brightly in the sky, I want to shine. No matter where anyone is, I want them to look up and see my majesty. What Southern Arrow wanted was not a hopeless dream. If he were able to fully consume the jade seal, the realization of his dream seemed to be a real possibility. Though he had only swallowed the jade seal, his vision and senses had expanded to this extent. So, from then on, Southern Arrow conquered the planet Quan, and referred to himself as the incarnation of a god. Southern Arrow instructed all the people to call him by that title. The people, servants, and the various monarchs all knelt and bowed their heads to him. And they prayed. In their eyes, Southern Arrow was like the second coming of God, who had descended upon their planet. If the great man who accomplished such great achievements, which had never before been seen, was not a god, then who or what could be called a god? Southern Arrow became a being with a divine legend. None of the other legends on planet Quan stacked up to Southern Arrow's. He was already the only god who ruled over civilization and planets. With such a legend, Southern Arrow closed his eyes at the age of 65. He was respected, awed, and feared. And, as he continued to gain faith, when Southern Arrow opened his eyes again, he knew he was no longer human. The body was but a prison and shackle that limited one's soul. Having shaken it off, he was now truly free. He shone brilliantly. He became a constellation that filled the night sky. The people who mourned or rejoiced over his death named the new constellation of stars, Cerita. I have become a star. Southern Arrow knew that he had become a divine being. Just before closing his eyes, he digested the last part of the jade seal and became the jade seal itself. The jade seal was originally a meteorite, or a shooting star. It could also be seen as the corpse of a star. Southern Arrow succeeded in absorbing and inheriting this corpse, resulting in a resurrection. His soul merged with the meteorite to evolve into a new being, and now, he could emit light like a star. So, Southern Arrow referred to himself as a star. Most of the beings who were called gods, demons, dragons, and giants were born with those titles and powers. They lucked into a good ancestry and birth. Only a few had gained those titles or powers by proving their worth. Of course, there were also those who accumulated achievements and legends and achieved exuviation and transcendence. However, Southern Arrow felt that he was different from these beings. No matter how hard they tried to fly or run, in the end, they could not escape the category of lower gods of a heavenly society, and it was virtually impossible for them to become stronger. On the other hand, how about Southern Arrow? He had no title or power from birth. He was born as an illegitimate child in a small tribe in the jungle which civilized people dismissed them as backcountry, so even non-civilized people had looked down on him. Fortunately, he was born with some talent, so he had sharpened his teeth, and thanks to that, he was able to succeed in proving himself to the world. At the same time, Southern Arrow had ascended to the heavens through the meteor that had fallen from the sky. Thus, he did not like the concepts of exuviation or transcendence. Unlike those who exuviated or transcended, Southern Arrow had ascended to the heavens and became a constellation all on his own. Thus, he felt that word, ascension, was more appropriate in describing himself. Hence, he decided to call himself an ascendant. He had proven himself on earth and was chosen by the heavens. If this was not evidence that indicated his difference from others and his specialness, what could? Having thought this far, Southern Arrow thought, now that I've become a constellation, I want to become the most brilliantly shining star in the night sky. A gigantic star that shines so bright that no other stars compare. Like the sun that turns the night sky into day, if the dark universe becomes filled with my light, what could be greater? Southern Arrow acted once he organized his thoughts. By devouring all the remaining stars, he succeeded not only in dyeing the sky's starlight with his own light, but he also encroached on the universe with his light. And then, his world, which Cha Jung-woo referred to as number 136,888,994,312,545,479, came to an end. His world line had been deleted. What the hell is this? Sesha couldn't help but take a few unconscious steps back as various scenes flashed past her mind. Shake though it was a very brief moment, she had seen many things. The gods and demons that were rapidly annihilated whenever Southern Arrow spread his light, as were various planets and civilizations. Those caught up in this annihilation screamed in confusion. All attempts to resist were in vain. In the end, all of them became raw materials. They were raw material that made the constellation called Southern Arrow more radiant. They had essentially become firewood for Southern Arrow. The baby universe had become a victim of Southern Arrow's greed even before it had a chance to fully bloom. Ha ha ha, it seems you've seen. You must possess a special eye. Momentarily, Southern Arrow was bewildered when Sesha's complexion had suddenly turned pale, but he soon realized the reason and burst into laughter. Sesha was terrified of Southern Arrow's unusually white teeth, which clashed sharply with his dark black face. It seemed that she would be torn apart by those teeth at any moment. Darkness Sphere was Southern Arrow's illusory world. Naturally, Southern Arrow's countless legends floated around like spirits in this space, and Sesha happened to glimpse into one of them. Even though she only peeked at some very minor thing, she could tell Southern Arrow's ruthlessness. She also could tell what would probably happen to her. The meteorite that allowed the Southern Arrow to become a star, there was only one fragment that had entered each world line. It seems he's crossing the world line and entering other universes to swallow the fragments. And in the process of doing just this, Southern Arrow had learned that there were other ascendants who were in a similar situation as him. In fact, this should be expected. In the myriad world lines that numbered near infinity, there was no way to stop everyone from realizing the value of these fragments. However, when Southern Arrow met these other ascendants, he did not try to kill them. He tried to work together with them. Each of them boasted tremendous strength, so if they ever fought each other, they would undoubtedly cause tremendous damage to each other. This damage would only hurt them when other ascendants appeared and hunted them down. Thus, the ascendants made a non-aggression pact with each other, formed an alliance, and launched a joint operation to find other fragment pieces. There were meteorites all over the place. Some had not yet been found and were ownerless, and even if they had an owner, there was hardly anyone who could defy the Ascendant Alliance. The middle-aged man who had chased after Min Chai-young and entrapped Sesha in this place was Southern Arrow. Additionally, the man and woman who appeared with him in Sesha's school were ascendants who belonged to the same alliance. In other words, they were also stars. They bore the names Tigress and Solarium respectively. Meteor, a mass of energy that transformed a single mortal into an ascendant. An almighty being who was reborn as a star to devour the world. Southern Arrow and the other stars and constellations called these meteorites star fragments. Sesha clenched her jaw. They crossed different dimensions in search of it, so they infiltrated my world line. The star fragment that these beings desired was standing next to Sesha. The star fragment was Min Chai-young. Side Story Chapter 37 Star Fragment 3. What can I do? Sesha's mind became filled with complicated thoughts. Southern Arrow, Tigress, and Solarium, each existence was strong enough to bring the world to an end. In fact, they were beings close to resembling beasts. No, they were more monstrous existences. The ability to devour a world meant that an existence possessed an exceedingly large legend, which meant that the existence could do many things. Considering that one's legend equated to a divine being's potential, these legend-possessing existences had many things they could do and could continue developing. Since Laplace was a being from outside world, he may possess a level of strength comparable to these beings, but it was unclear whether he would be able to deal with three at once. In fact, Laplace's absence in this illusory world meant that he had faced some trouble back on Earth while contending against the middle-aged man. What shall I do? Your expression seems complicated. Maybe we should help you ease it a little bit. Southern Arrow smiled coldly and took a step forward. Thud. The darkness sphere trembled. Sesha's complexion turned pale. The spirit pressure was so immense that she felt as though her body and soul were being torn apart. Whoosh. Still, Sesha made every effort to protect Min Chai-young. And the more Sesha acted this way, the more Southern Arrow's cold smile grew wider. He acted like a cat who was playing around with its prey. Hey, stop playing around. Let's hurry this up. We still have a long road ahead of us. If the other group wins, will you take responsibility? Solarium grumbled as she looked at the Southern Arrow. She did not seem to like being in this area too long. The alliance they belonged to was in the process of collecting star fragments while rapidly crossing various world lines. However, crossing a world line was not an easy task, and they needed to move carefully so as not to be noticed by Deus Ex Machina, the existence in charge of the law of causality. In fact, by staying in one world for a long time, beings of their size would easily be observed by Deus Ex Machina, so they were under a time constraint and had to leave as soon as possible. However, the Southern Arrow was annoyed at Solarium because he wanted to enjoy some fun, even though he also knew they were under the clock. I see, I get it. It'll be over soon. Southern Arrow gave a sinister smile with his white shiny teeth fully exposed. I wanted to watch you guys squirm a bit longer, but this granny is making it hard. Regrettably, I'll have to get rid of you now. For a brief moment, you've made me happy, so I'll send you off without too much pain. Southern Arrow reached out towards Sesha and Min Chai Young. To Sesha, the gesture seemed slow. She felt as if the world around her had slowed down. Sesha could see Southern Arrow's hand movement and spirit pressure, and even the expression on his face in detail. The problem was that her movements had slowed to match the slowed world. Essentially, she could not move. There was only one thing Sesha could do: ignite Nephilim's flame. The brilliance of Nephilim's flame was so great and unexpected that Southern Arrow's smile widened. But that reaction only lasted for a moment, as he was determined to make quick work of both girls. Right then. Boom. Suddenly, a huge shockwave shook the illusory world, the darkness sphere. Southern Arrow directed his gaze upward. Solarium's eyes grew wide. The shockwave's impact on the illusory world alluded to the great power of the outside existence. Just as expected, from where the shockwave originated, a man appeared. Grandfather! Sesha shouted with a delighted expression. Southern Arrow had clearly stated that the darkness sphere was clearly cut off from observation. But then, how did Sesha's grandfather find this place? Kronos looked down with a hardened face. I wondered why I wasn't getting a signal on the magic field. How dare you bastards touch my granddaughter? It was only then that Sesha knew how Kronos had found her. The tablet PC he gave her as a present. It seemed that Kronos had put a tracking magic field device on it. The tracking magic field device would normally be off when she was nearby but turn on automatically if she was not near it. And once that tracking device turned on, Kronos found out that Sesha had disappeared from Earth. The King of Gods. It seems to be the Kronos of this world line. No matter which world line we go to, he's always been a nuisance. I didn't expect to meet him in this world line as well. Please, take care of him. Sure, but hurry. The longer you take, the more annoying this situation will become. Bam! Solarium smiled and flew toward Kronos. One of Kronos' eyebrows twitched. Though he had no idea who these beings were, Kronos did not appreciate their laid-back attitude and how they dared to comfortably converse amongst themselves while he was present. I don't know who you all are, but I'll make sure to rip off a pair of limbs on each of you before allowing you to speak again. Kronos stretched his hand forward. Then, as the space twisted and his divine power condensed, a huge scythe appeared. Scythe originally, it was Kronos' main body when he was resurrected, but now it was separate from his soul. Scythe had become a divine weapon that contained his powers. Since Numa's sky was contained within, Scythe could control time. Yian Wu always handled Scythe in the form of a sword, but for Kronos, the Scythe form was the most comfortable for him to handle. The power to wind time and bring death to life. The concept of the Grim Reaper, who symbolized the concept of harvesting death from life, originated from Kronos in the first place. Whoosh! Kronos swung Scythe down vigorously. He was planning on splitting Solarium and reaping her soul. Seeing Kronos' movement, Solarium snorted. Even in the world line where she originally inhabited, Kronos existed. And whenever she crossed each world line to retrieve the star fragments, she met countless versions of Kronos, who looked more or less like the one in front of her. Though most of them were once strong enough to earn the title of King of Gods. In the end, your powers are limited. The existence of a star meant that a being had already annihilated a world line and devoured its powers. This meant that the being would be close to an emperor-level being, which meant it had acquired a uniqueness that transcended the world lines. Thus, in Solarium's mind, it did not make sense that a being that lived within a world line could confront her, no matter how strong of a being it was. Could they block a star? Was this not the same as a frog that lived down in the well talking about how great it was without knowing how wide the world is? Kronos, threatening words were just a joke for Solarium. Thus, she planned on showing this version of Kronos just how wide the gap was between them. What is this? As Solarium approached Kronos with confidence and flashed around her powers, she soon started frowning. Her powers had suddenly stopped shining. They had become non-operational. Idiot. Kronos smiled coldly. That smile conveyed a lot to Solarium. I don't know what or who you are, but if I cut the progress of time to a time before you can bring out your powers, then you'll essentially be powerless, right? Quote exclamation mark quote. Only then did Solarium realize what Kronos had done. Kronos had forcibly cut off time to a point before she released her powers. Solarium wondered if this type of attack was even possible, and she grew fearful of the being that stated he cut off time in such a nonchalant way. Numa's sky, cutting off power. This world line's Chronos is different from the other Chronos I've come across. However, when Solarium realized this, it was already too late. Scythe tore through her, from the nape of her left neck to her right waist. That was how her life ended, the star constellation known as Solarium. Though he had made a great achievement, Chronos did not stop to appreciate his work. As soon as he sliced through Solarium, Chronos flew toward Sesha. Boom! Like Solarium, the southern arrow had to contend with another being. How could this be? The being in front of him seemed to show no interest in him, as he stood in place, frozen like a block of ice. Rhea was hugging Sesha and saying that everything was fine. Grandmother, are you okay? Did you injure yourself anywhere? Nod. Sesha went into her grandmother's arms and nodded vigorously. She wept and wailed. When her grandfather and grandmother suddenly appeared, Sesha unwittingly let go of the tension that she was holding on to, so tears had welled up and burst out from her eyes. My child, you must have been very surprised. Who the hell did this to you? Who tormented our dear grandchild? Who made you cry, child? Sesha pointed at Southern Arrow. That bastard. Okay, so, it's him. Perhaps this grandmother of yours should teach him a lesson. Rhea smiled kindly before gently pushing Sesha and Min Chai Young behind her. At that moment, Min Chai Young looked at Rhea with complicated emotions reflected in her eyes. It was because Min Chai Young recalled her mother, who left her alone with her stepfather one day before running away. Step. Rhea moved towards Southern Arrow. It was a light step, but the result was anything but that. The constricting force Southern Arrow felt increased with every step Rhea took. Choir in Ale's world, absolute realm. This. Southern Arrow's eyes were bloodshot. He felt as if the space around him, or the entire darkness sphere, had been frozen. An unbelievable, unfathomable scene was unfolding. Someone else was taking control of his holy territory. One's holy territory was based on one's legends, so it should only be controllable by the owner of the illusory world. It should have been impossible for another being to occupy and control one's illusory world without permission. For that to be possible, either the owner of the holy territory had to be killed or the associated legends devoured. However, Rhea had skipped over these assumed requirements. And she did it in a very matter-of-fact way. She had easily entered and appeared inside the darkness sphere, as if she had come to visit her own house. She was now extending her hand towards Southern Arrow. Rhea also lacked the quality of uniqueness, so she also existed in other world lines. In the other world lines, she was also the last descendant of the choir in Ale and dealt with space. However, there was no version of Rhea who handled the concept of space as freely as the one in front of Southern Arrow. This was the first time he had met such an omnipotent version of Rhea. Chronos, and now Rhea's Southern Arrow wondered what the hell happened on this world line that made it so different from the Chronos and rays of the other world lines. Are you curious about what happened to my husband and I? Single quote exclamation mark single quote. Well, even if I told you, you wouldn't be able to comprehend. Step. Rhea approached Southern Arrow. The closer she came, the more the Southern Arrow's complexion turned pale. It did not end with the simple transfer of ownership of his holy territory. Rhea was now looking deep into his consciousness, which made up the holy territory. This meant that Rhea had not only taken control of his holy territory, but she had made Dark Sphere completely her own. I have to tell this fact to the others. I need to somehow let them know. Southern Arrow was thrown into a sense of crisis, a feeling he had not felt in a long time. He wanted to let the Alliance know that this world line was dangerous. If he did so, considering his merits and good deeds, perhaps they would resurrect him. However, Southern Arrow's thoughts were easily read by Rhea. In the old days, I used to go here and there because of that immature husband of mine, but now my husband and I are not interested in going anywhere else. Rhea stopped right in front of Southern Arrow and stared coolly into his eyes. So, don't even think about coming near us again. If you come, even after this warning. Ray's hand gradually covered Southern Arrow's face. I won't leave you guys alone. Boom. Rhea tapped Southern Arrow's forehead very lightly with her index finger. It was a simple move. However, the result was unimaginably destructive. Whoosh. As the entire darkness sphere sank down, all the powers that Southern Arrow possessed collapsed and formed into tiny pieces of sand on the ground. Side Story Chapter 38 Star Fragment 4. Darkness sphere scattered in the air. Soon, Laplace appeared in front of the three. Open hollow corner bracket. Ohoho, who is this? If it isn't my master's father and mother. Laplace humbly greets both. Laplace threw his body onto the ground to respectfully greet his master's parents, but suddenly, the little wheel turned, so he was thrown back in his standing motion. Laplace blinked his eyes. With a tired expression, Kronos spoke aloud while holding onto Scythe. Stop doing that weird stuff. I saw you this morning, so you don't have to greet me like that. Open hollow corner bracket ohoho. As expected of our gracious master's father. You are too considerate and shy. No, that's not it. If he had to pick the being who hated his bizarre behavior the most, Laplace would undoubtedly state Kronos. Ever since he was with Yin Wu, Kronos wondered why Laplace acted so weird. But recently, it seemed that Laplace was acting more bizarre. And since Yin Wu was the only one who could reign in Laplace, it seemed Kronos' son's absence had given Laplace confidence to act himself. Kronos seriously considered asking Yin Wu to get rid of Laplace when he returned. Open hollow corner bracket ha ha ha. Our Kronos-sama is just as kawaii as Sesha-chan. While saying this, Laplace gave a playful wink. Husband, stop, calm down, let go of me, I'm going to kill that bastard today. Kronos lifted Scythe and acted as if he was going to strike Laplace. However, Rhea grabbed him before he could do anything. The more anger Kronos showed, the more Laplace winked, alternating between both eyes. Laplace also started speaking with a lisp. Open hollow corner bracket ooh. I just adore strong men who act manly. Were you trying to run into my arms just a moment ago? Are you sure it's okay to do so in front of your wife, Rhea? I'm going to kill you. Kronos swung Scythe back and forth. What a shit show. Sesha pressed her temple with her index fingers. After meeting Kronos and Rhea, all the tension she had felt before was relieved, but because of Laplace, Sesha started feeling annoyed. It was always like this. Whenever Laplace appeared, it felt like something was being twisted. How did you come here anyway? What happened to the guy you were facing? Laplace had clearly been facing another being. Fearing that Earth might be adversely affected by their fight, Kronos and Rhea had rushed over to help him out. However, Laplace had come to them, so they wondered what had happened. Laplace groaned as he tightened his pectoral muscles. Ahem, I exemplified my greatness once more. Just state the truth. Open hollow corner bracket ha ha ha. Was it that obvious? Don't laugh like that, it's creepy. Open hollow corner bracket foo foo foo. Laplace winked as he brought his index and middle finger up to the corner of his eye. Sesha's eyes soon turned lifeless, like a fish's eyes. Grandfather. Yes. Is it possible to kill him? It is possible. Kronos immediately lifted Scythe high above him and slammed it down on the crown of Laplace's head. But before the strike was completed, Laplace had zipped back into Sesha's shadow. Scythe swung harmlessly in the space where Laplace was just a moment ago. Seeing her granddaughter and husband's defeated look, Rhea sighed. It was only then that Rhea noticed that Min Chai-young was blankly staring at Sesha and Kronos. Her gaze is full of envy. There are a variety of other emotions mixed in as well. Relief, anxiety, nervousness, concern. Although she feels relieved to have escaped the enemy's grasp, she seems worried that Kronos and I might blame her for what happened. No one was injured, thank goodness, but all of this happened because of me, right? What will they do to me? I'm sure they're going to say something bad. A monster appeared and did all this. I had nothing to do with it. These people almost got hurt because of me, so they'll probably hate me, probably more than hate. They'll detest and be resentful of me. They'll avoid me from now on, right? They'll probably scold me first. I was just getting to know the others and becoming friends with them, but I've lost everyone once more. Still, it's nice to see that they all have a good relationship with each other. Is that what it means to be a family? Only if I had such a family that would have been nice. Min Chai-young's vestige thoughts rushed out and were felt by the others. As she looked at Sesha and her family with a somewhat jealous gaze, Min Chai-young belatedly realized Rei's gaze. Min Chai-young was startled and hurriedly turned her head to the side to avoid eye contact. Trembling, as if she had made a big mistake, Min Chai-young cautiously glanced at Rhea. This child. Rhea seemed to understand why Min Chai-young was reacting as she was. Rhea bit her lower lip, quietly reached out her hand, and pulled Min Chai-young in for a hug. Min Chai-young was startled. It's okay. Open corner bracket exclamation mark close corner bracket. It's okay, don't worry. Open corner bracket close corner bracket. Min Chai-young soon regained her composure after being startled by Rei's warm touch. Then, after a while, Min Chai-young pursed her lips. While carefully looking at Rhea, Min Chai-young asked. Open corner bracket, you're not planning on scolding me? Huh, me. Why would I scold you? Open corner bracket because those monsters came because of me. Why is it because of you? If anyone is in the wrong, it's those monsters. You did nothing wrong. They were the bad guys. Open corner bracket exclamation mark close corner bracket. Min Chae-young's eyes widened to the size of large saucers. She did not expect such a response. Min Chae-young had lived a life where she was always resented by her family members. She had always been told that everything bad that happened occurred because of her. Chae-young had never heard a response like the one Rhea just gave. You're so pretty, how can I scold you? Actually, I wanted to thank you for helping to protect my granddaughter. Drop, drop, tears flowed down from the corners of Min Chae-young's eyes. As if the winter snow was melting in the spring, the tears that she had been holding back for so long rushed out. Empathizing, Rhea cried as well. After Sesh's group left, a dark shadow quietly approached the school. Originally, it was a place that was almost destroyed by the 3 stars attack. But since Kronos rewound the little wheel and restored the school to its original state, the school stood as if nothing had happened. The shadow stood at the place where a fierce battle had just taken place a few moments ago. As the shadow slowly took shape, Tigress. After quarreling with Laplace, Kronos and Rhea had appeared, and once Kronos had rewound the little wheel, he was rematerialized in this place. Stupid bastards. Tisk. Tigress clicked his tongue. His mocking words were directed at the dead Southern Arrow and Solarium. I explained to them many times that this world line is dangerous. Well, their low intelligence was why they couldn't enter the top 88 ranking stars. Multiple and parallel universes were not all the same. There were also ratings of world lines. Deus Ex Machina numbered the world lines according to the order in which each world line was differentiated or born, and the ranks tended to decrease as the number progressed. Of course, even in the latter numbered world lines, there were many cases where a special mutation occurred in that universe and outperformed the previous numbered world lines, but most of the time, the rating sequence usually corresponded to a world line's number. Therefore, the place designated as #0 feet, which was the source of all world lines, was a place that even the stars could not easily reach. This world line, otherwise called the original, was where the universe originally existed in the form of a wheel. This #0 feet world line contained the Tower, and the Heavenly Demon and Black King, who vied against each other over the control of the entire universe. It was also the place where the Black King took on his present identity and where the nonsensical being called Deus Ex Machina was born. Kronos and Rhea were the parents of 2 such twins. Even though I explained to them that it wasn't the time to reveal our identities to Deus Ex Machina, did they think it would be easy to defeat Kronos and Rhea? What the hell happened to the stars? Tigress marveled at the idiocy of the defeated stars. The 2 stars went up against the parents who gave birth to the Black King and Deus Ex Machina. If one had any common sense, one would have avoided these beings. No, they probably did have such thoughts. However, they had become drunk with the confidence of being a star, so their pride blinded them from the obvious. In the beginning, the stars were like that. They were beings who could not distinguish between bravery, generosity, and pride. Their confidence was a part of their being, as they grew up being victorious in all their pursuits, ever since they were mortals to their positions as stars. Well, thanks to their idiocy, I was able to survive. Tigress felt confident that, if the stars could become more focused and discerning, they would have a chance to become greater beings. Even now, unexpectedly, he would be able to devour a delicious delicacy. Is. Tigress waved his hand in the air. Then, a gust of wind blew and swept past the entire school, revealing various vestiges that were forced to reveal themselves as they slumped onto the ground. Tigress, you're alive. Hurry, come save us. Stars did not easily become annihilated. When their starlight dimmed, the sparks of their starlight remained. Thus, they could be resurrected at any time. It was because their foundation was rooted in the star fragments. They shone light with those fragments. This was why they called themselves the stars. It was a different concept of existence when compared to gods, who derived their power based on faith. These gods were destined to disappear if there were no followers or believers remaining. Gods could not shine or exist on their own. This was why the stars referred to gods and demons as parasites that lived trivial lives. However, if one star fragments were taken away, the star would disappear as well. Tigress looked at Southern Arrow and Solarium, who were begging him to save them quickly, but did not respond to them. Tigress just opened his mouth wide. The corners of his mouth seemingly rose to his ears as he lowered his chin. His serrated, sharp teeth could clearly be seen. Ack, no. Southern Arrow and Solarium's expressions turned pale. Belatedly, they realized what Tigress was trying to do. They tried to run away, but they could not. Kronos and Rhea had nearly snuffed out their starlight, so their ability to do something was greatly restricted. Gulp, Tigress swallowed both at once. Tearing screams could be heard echoing in the background. Tigress could feel the two vestiges wriggling in his mouth, but he did not care. Tigress was just happy to have acquired 2 additional star fragments. Instead of immediately swallowing, he savored the star fragments in his mouth. Taste, satiety, and satisfaction. The star fragments fulfilled all these qualities. For a moment, Tigress seemed to understand why the top 88 ranking stars devoured other star fragments whenever they had the chance. I think I may become addicted to this feeling, ha ha ha. If one only devoured the star fragment, then only one's light would brighten, but if one devoured the entire constellation, as Tigress did, one would consume the legends that the constellation had developed and gathered over the years, so the feeling of euphoria was that much greater. Currently, Tigress was peering into snippets of Southern Arrow and the Solarium's past experiences, and he started acquiring all the powers they had built up over the years. As their souls were assimilating into one, Tigress became the Southern Arrow and Solarium. And after returning to his state as Tigress, he became a Tigress with a higher rank. The present Tigress was a completely different entity from the Tigress of the past. Tigress was now a large star. He had not become a great star, but he had now gained the capability to stand shoulder to shoulder with the top 88 ranking stars. He felt an infinite sense of omnipotence in his fingertips. The Alliance sent us here to collect the star fragment, but they also wanted us to take a closer look at the state of the world line. I must fulfill my duty as a forward scout. Tigress did not allow himself to feel intoxicated with a sense of omnipotence. Instead, he tried to restrict the feeling as much as possible. It was because he did not know when Kronos and Rhea would appear, and it was still necessary to hide his newfound powers from other stars. And, if possible, Tigress also wanted to somehow get his hands on the star fragment within this world line. A star fragment from the original world line. If he could somehow get his hands on that, Tigress would almost certainly stand shoulder to shoulder with the other great stars. Perhaps, if he could somehow devour Kronos and Rhea as well, Tigress could aim for an even higher perch. Of course, this was just fanciful daydreaming, as Tigress did not intend to search for the 2 existences. However, that did not stop him from thinking of the if. In this respect, Tigress was a natural hunter who knew the importance of waiting better than anyone else. As Tigress seeped into the shadows again. Like a shark moving quietly from the depths to snatch its prey, he moved carefully under the shadows. Side Story Chapter 39 Star Fragment 5. It's a little cramped in here, huh? It may feel awkward at first, but just think of it as your own home. After Kronos opened the front door, Rhea waved her inside. Min Chai-young paused in front of the front door's mantel. Her 2 eyes grew round. This is cramped. Min Chai-young felt that the world's interpretation of small or cramped had changed greatly since she last ventured out into the world. Sesh's house was, actually, very large. The front lawn was vast, with green grass and various plants planted everywhere. The home itself was 3 stories tall and looked as if it had come out from a drama. For Min Chai-young, who had lived in a cramped studio with her mother and stepfather, the size of the house and lot seemed unbelievable. The opening foyer itself was larger than the studio she had lived in previously. Well, they are such great people, so of course they must be rich. They're probably very well off. However, Min Chai-young soon understood the meaning of Ray's words. Since Chai-young had not experienced the day of the beginning, she did not really understand what it meant, but she knew that Kronos and Rhea were figures who played a large part in it. Was it because they were so powerful and strong that they possessed such a relaxed and calm outlook on everything? Or did their relaxed and calming attitudes allow them to become powerful and strong? Though she did not know the details of the family, Min Chai-young could see that the family was very tight-knit, so she could not help but feel a bit envious. Her own parents had always been strapped for cash and lived very tense lives. And since her parents were always tired and high-strung, if anything got on their nerves, they would instantly explode and shout out in anger. Domestic violence was a given, and the house was always filled with empty bottles of alcohol. There must have been many reasons for Min Chai-young's mother to abandon her and leave. This did not mean that Min Chai-young forgave her mother, just that she understood the situation. If she was ever put in her mother's shoes, Chai-young did not know what she would have done. Her mother was always abused by her ever-drunk husband and probably felt stress from the thought of having to provide for her daughter, who would soon enter university. Her mother had chosen to escape from all this. Thus, Min Chae-young could not help but think, if her mother was a bit more relaxed and calmer, if she had a bit of spare money, would Min Chae-young herself then have lived a normal life? These thoughts swirled in Min Chae-young's mind as she stood in front of the open front door. She felt that she would be unable to return to the past if she stepped past the door's mantle. Was it okay for her to live a normal life? Was it truly fine for her to live a different life? At that moment, Min Chae-young, open corner bracket question mark close corner bracket. Sesha, who had gone in before Chae-young, reached her hand out to Chae-young. You're visiting a friend's house. Don't think too hard about it. Open corner bracket exclamation mark close corner bracket. As if she read Chae-young's mind, Sesha smiled brightly. Min Chae-young nodded. Open corner bracket thanks. For the first time in a long while, a smile formed on Chae-young's lips. You're not hurt anywhere, right? You're okay, right? Of course, mother. Don't nag, my friend's here. Ananta ran over to Kronos' house after hearing the news of her daughter. She was caught off guard when she heard her daughter had fallen into danger. Ananta took the time to look over her daughter a few times, just to make sure her daughter was truly okay. Though she felt guilty about worrying her mother, Sesha also felt embarrassed at her mother's actions, which were being observed by her grandfather, grandmother, and friend. However, regardless of her daughter's position, Ananta thoroughly looked at every inch of her daughter's body before sighing in relief. And then, with sharpened eyes bam! Ananta smashed her daughter's back. Flinch. The sound of the back smash was so loud that Min Chae-young could not help but flinch. Ack, Mom, that hurts. Of course it hurts, do you think I hit you so that it wouldn't hurt? Bam, bam, ack, stop it. Sesha tried to get away from her mother's hand, but her mother, who was a well-known high ranker in the tower, was not planning on letting her daughter off easy. You only pick the most dangerous things to do, don't you? If something ever happens, I told you to use a teleport scroll or call on me. Other than Nephilim's fire, there were many other options that Sesha could have chosen. From an early age, Sesha had garnered a lot of unwanted attention, and if the truth of her being a dragon species ever got out, she would fall into more trouble. Thus, Sesha and the others around her had made many preparations. Even with Earth's system down, these other options were available for Sesha, but she had decided not to use any of them. This was what enraged Ananta. Sesha felt wronged as she also had a lot to say about this matter. Having had an argument with her mother a couple weeks ago, Sesha had not yet apologized to her mother. Her dumb pride had stopped her from apologizing to her mother, even though she knew that her mother would accept the apology without another word. This was why Sesha had hesitated in calling her mother and how she found herself trapped within the darkness sphere. Chae-young, open corner bracket run. Not waiting for a reply, Sesha grabbed onto Chae-young's wrist and dragged her up to the second floor. That girl. With an exasperated expression, Ananta stared at the scurrying figure of her daughter. Ananta then plopped lifelessly onto a sofa. She felt as though she had lived through a few decades within the last few hours. Don't be too hard on her. It wasn't like Sesha wanted anything to happen. Kronos, who had read into Sesha's thoughts, spoke calmly with a smile. Ananta nodded as she continued to sigh. Well, I was just frustrated out of my mind. I'm sorry to have acted so shamefully in front of both of you. Don't be sorry. What mother wouldn't feel frustrated? Kronos, who still felt guilty about what position he had put his offspring in, knew the frustration that Ananta was feeling. Then, Kronos' expression became serious. Anyway, I'll need to have a talk about those beings called stars. Do you know anything about them? Ananta saw the god of king's serious expression for the first time in a while. No, I don't have any clue. I've seen gods and demons with divine positions related to stars and constellations before, but I've never heard of beings who referred to themselves as stars. Within gods and demons, there was the Chan sects Big Dipper and Little Dipper, Memphis Taweret, and even Olympus Krios. However, none of these existences had referred to themselves as a star. Thus, Ananta logically concluded that these stars were their own species, but Ananta had no clue where they originated or how they came to be. Did they possess a soul? Kronos ruled over time and death. Ananta was asking if Kronos could call upon their souls and investigate further, but Kronos responded to Ananta's question with a shake of his head. No, and I found that odd as well. Odd meaning? I sliced them clean through with scythe, an instrument that is essentially made of time. They should have met their deaths, but they possessed no souls. Kronos' eyes narrowed. It was as if they had wafted off into the air. Or perhaps rejoined their true bodies. They possessed existences, achievements, and legends, but they didn't possess a soul. I have no clue what this means. In the beginning, I thought I was being tricked somehow. Ananta could not understand Kronos' explanation. Were there existences that did not possess a soul? That would mean the beings were like Cha Jung-woo's previous vestige state of being, but how were they able to hold on to their legends? Like a material, one's legends reinforced one's soul. Thus, it was nearly impossible for a soulless existence to hold on to legends. Cha Jung-woo, who had acquired power through various iterations of the wheel, was an exception to this rule. These existences did not seem to possess life or death. Kronos felt that these existences, who called themselves stars, were irregulars, beings that existed outside of the normal universe. Perhaps the star fragment that makes up the stars consists of a soul. That's the definition of a fragment anyway, right? They're not complete. Rhea cautiously stated her opinion. Hearing this, Kronos' eyes popped open. They're incomplete, so the fragments devour the host's soul and move using their host's physical forms. Yes. However, it seems they allow the host's soul to survive and think that it is moving of its own free will and accord. That's a frightening thought. It sounds plausible as well. Kronos could not help but let out an exasperated chuckle. He had recalled that the stars had acted as if they were existences that possessed free will. However, based on Ray's assessment, they may just be star fragments that manifested in being formed to search and acquire other fragment pieces. The beings themselves might not even know that they were being controlled by the star fragments. Then that means that the girl named Min Chae-young. Open hollow corner bracket. Don't you think it would be best to stop conducting your conversation through physical voice? A shadow shot up amongst them with its index finger on its lips. It was Laplace. Kronos quickly realized that he almost made a mistake, but he still glared at Laplace. Was this perverted rabbit always this quick thinking? Open hollow corner bracket. Oh ho ho. Why are you looking at me so lovingly? For a moment, I thought too highly of you. Kronos decided to give up on formulating any conclusion about Laplace. The more he tried to understand Laplace, the bigger the headache he incurred. Anyway, we're lacking information. We don't know where they're from, and it doesn't seem like it's just a few of them either. First off, we should call on Jung-woo. Kronos then crossed his arms across his chest and sighed heavily. Daughter-in-law, are you able to get a hold of Jung-woo? Ananta gave a bitter smile as she shook her head. It seems like he's having a hard time with the rapidly expanding world lines. Even if I send him a message, it'll be a while before he responds. It seems there might be a connection between the rapidly expanding world lines and these star fellows. The more world lines there are, the greater the number of crazy mutations. The universe was probably not the same as what they once remembered. This was what Kronos was saying. Moreover, this was something that Jung-woo had told his family members multiple times before. To find the form known as Cha-yi and Woo, Jung-woo had started the division of world lines. However, the more this went on, the greater the stress Jung-woo felt in handling the rapidly growing world lines. By utilizing his divine domain of law of causality, Jung-woo was able to somewhat control what was happening in the world lines, but it would not have been weird if something had slipped by his notice. Moreover, since there were more world lines, there was a greater chance of emperor-level figures appearing. Regardless, one thing was for sure. As long as Min Chae-young was present, those figures known as stars or whatever would continue coming. It seemed that the family may be thrown into a more complicated situation than what they faced within the tower. First, why don't we conduct further investigation into the stars and try and find the person Chae-young is trying to find? Perhaps the person she's trying to find is related to what's going on here. Let's do that. For a girl who hasn't opened her eyes in 10 years to suddenly open her eyes, something must be up. The gathered had already heard about Min Chae-young's background from Sesha. They were all in agreement that something would come about if they granted Chae-young's wish. What was the name of the person she's looking for? Sun Jae-won. 14 years ago, he attended the same school that Sesha is currently attending. She also mentioned that he was relatively quiet. Do we know anything about his parents or if he had any relatives or siblings? Do we know anything else about him? He always arrived early to school. He wasn't very eye-catching, but he seemed to shine, at least in her eyes. I guess he was her first love. Husband, why are you interested in such things? Rhea lightly swiped at Kronos. I must be getting old. Whenever I hear of youngsters and their love stories, my insides become scratchy. Perhaps it's because it reminds me of our own youth. This old man. Ha ha ha. Rhea narrowed her eyes, but it did not seem she was too bothered by what Kronos said. Kronos lightly chuckled. Anyway, Sun J1 hum. Kronos chuckled as he rubbed his chin. What, does the name ring a bell? No, that's not it. Kronos scratched the back of his head. It's because another Sun has come up. I'm pretty sure this Sun has no relation to the other Sun, HMPF. It seems I'm becoming worried over everything as I'm getting older. Quote. Not understanding what Kronos was saying, Rhea and Ananta tilted their heads in confusion. Kronos waved his hands and chuckled as he spoke. There's something like that. There were many Korean people with the surname Sun. Since this Sun was a student studying in Korea, the chances were high that he was Korean, but if that was not a restriction, there could be thousands of people with the surname Sun in the world. Though it seemed like a simple coincidence for Kronos could not help but feel a bit worried about the connection. Side Story Chapter 40 Star Fragment 6. About a week after Min Chae-young started following Sesha to school plop. Kronos placed a document on a table. Rhea and Ananta soon looked to see what Kronos had brought. On the document, they saw someone's biography as well as 3 pictures. Are you doing some undercover background investigation work on the side? You seem to always say that you didn't have time for anything since you were so busy looking after Yoon. Hearing Ray's snide remark, Kronos lightly sighed. It's not like that. Then, look closely. Quote. Wondering what her husband was up to, Rhea looked at the document closely. Soon, her eyes grew wide. Less than Sun J1 greater than. Client's person of interest. Unable to find date of birth or any birth records associated with this person of interest. The person of interest went missing after going off to school 14 years ago. Personality was introspective and quiet. He did not seem to have many friends. From a young age, he was offered a government title as a national genius treasure, but his parents did not accept the offer. He is considered a person of high interest in an unsolved string of murders that occurred during that period. He is assumed to be either the perpetrator or a victim. Less than Sun Ji-ho greater than. Sun Jae-won's father. Date of birth is unknown. Last seen 14 years ago at a corner store purchasing some beer before going missing. He was fond of singing and was known to possess an outgoing personality. He was the main vocalist and leader of the popular band called Will. Will is no longer together. Unable to find any other family background information. Less than Seo Eun-young greater than. Sun Jae-won's mother. Date of birth is unknown. 9 years ago, she told her friend, Mrs. Ji-yu, that she was planning on visiting her relatives. She was never heard from again. We were told that she possessed a warm and pleasant personality. Along with her husband, she was active in Will as the sub-vocal and main guitarist. Unable to find any other family background information. The name, Sun Jae-won, was at the top of the document, and below it followed the names, Sun Ji-ho, and Seo Eun-young. We looked everywhere for the guy that Chae-young mentioned, but we didn't get anywhere, so I employed an investigator. It seems something strange is going on. At first, when Rhea accepted Chae-young's request, Kronos thought that it would not be too difficult to find the boy called Sun Jae-won. Though he felt a sense of unease, if the boy lived as a human on Earth, Kronos and Rhea would inevitably be able to locate and find him. If they released their powers for a moment to look through the entire planet, they would be able to locate the person of interest within an instant. However, their thought of conducting such a simple act of search and locate quickly crumbled. No matter how many times they scanned the entirety of Earth, they could not locate the being named Sun Jae-won. They investigated every being that possessed such a name and even those who possessed it in the past, but they had no luck. Thinking that something was off, Kronos rewound the wheel to go back in time to view the vestige thoughts left by Sun Jae-won while Rhea followed along to shadow Sun Jae-won's movements. And after reviewing all the remnants left by Sun Jae-won in the past, they concluded that Sun Jae-won was not a simple figure. Min Chae-young had stated that Sun Jae-won always arrived at school early, was relatively quiet, and was unassuming. However, what Kronos and Rhea found did not match Chae-young's description. You see it too, right? There's something different about that Sun Jae-won. Around the time when Min Chae-young was killed, Sun Jae-won seemed to have changed. Not only did Sun Jae-won seek revenge on the stepfather who had killed Chae-young, but but he started to also resolve the various injustices and criminal cases that had occurred during his contemporary period. It was as if he had become some sort of US comic book superhero. Kronos and Rhea also recalled that there were many corpses popping up all over Korea during that time. It had caused quite a commotion back then. In the end, no one was able to find the culprit behind all the corpses, and the serial killings of that time from the serial killer had suddenly stopped. In the end, nothing was concluded or resolved. Rhea, who was in the hospital at that time due to illness, did not pay much attention to what had been going on. She never thought that Sun Jae-won was behind everything that had occurred during that time. So, on a hunch, I employed someone to investigate everyone close to Sun Jae-won. This is what they found. Kronos crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes. Doesn't it seem like something is up? Oh, Sun Jae-won was the child from the parents who led the band, Will. When she arrived on Earth for the first time, Rhea found that her age group was very interested in the band called Will. Before marrying Kronos, she recalled going to a few of their concerts. She did not expect to see or hear of them again, especially in this way. Rhea also recalled that the love and marriage of the two members of Will had been a popular story in the tabloids back then. Moreover, the band stopped performing ever since the two members' marriage. For there to be no other family information isn't that unexpected. Do you know what's more interesting? Even though they were so popular, no one seems to be able to recall how they looked. You're right, Rhea tried recalling their faces but could not do so easily. She soon nodded her head. Whether a blessing or a curse, once one reached divine status, one lost the sense of obliviousness. All memories that a soul experienced and piled up within one's unconscious could be reviewed whenever one wanted. Everything one saw and observed remained as detailed as a video clip, and one would be able to recall the feelings, inner thoughts, sensations, and general thoughts one had at that time. Hence, all memories that Rhea possessed when she was the god Rhea existed within her soul. However, strangely, Rhea could not recall the faces of Will's vocalist and guitarist whom she had seen when she went to their concerts with Kronos. It was as if her memories had been covered by strong sunlight. The child named Sun Jae-won. It's clear that his disappearance has something to do with his parents. Sun Jae-won disappeared first, and then the other two disappeared. Even the other members of the band don't seem to know anything about their whereabouts. This was Kronos' conclusion. Rhea sighed. It was difficult enough trying to find out what or who the stars were. Now, they had to contend with another difficult matter. Do you think it has something to do with Chae-young's star fragment? I don't know, but we can't say there's no association at all, right? Let's not make hasty assumptions. We'll find out more as we dig deeper, so let's keep all this a secret from Chae-young for the time being. Yes, I agree, Rhea nodded. It isn't going to break, right? Min Chae-young looked at her adorable hand, which was clenching her index finger, with a trembling gaze. Abubu, a 1-year-old baby, still unable to speak, babbled. Its babbling words struck Min Chae-young's heart. She wondered how in the world could there be such a cute and adorable child. Sesha referred to this child as her youngest aunt. Maybe it received the title as youngest because her grandfather and grandmother gave birth to it recently. Although Sesha grumbled that her genealogy was terribly twisted because of it, Sesha made sure to carefully care for her young aunt. Auntie pooped again. I need to change her diaper. Abu-boo-boo. You can't eat that. No, milk. No, milk. For a long time, Sesha busily wrestled with the baby. When she finished changing the baby's diapers, Sesha was exhausted. Am I a niece or a nanny? Sesha lamented as she lay half-strewn across a chair. It seemed that Sesha had lost half her soul. As the youngest sibling in the Cha household, the baby was fierce and lively. So every time Sesha met her aunt, she felt like she was running out of power. Regardless of whatever Sesha felt, Sesha's aunt just loved being with Sesha. Even now, the baby was standing up with her diaper on and shaking Sesha to and fro. Hey, niece, there's something odd about the way she talks. Niece, why does her way of speaking remind me of father and uncle? Sesha looked at her youngest aunt with a strange expression on her face, but her youngest aunt was energetically playing around in a good mood. Min Chae-young stared at Sesha, and then she quickly said something to prevent Sesha from falling asleep due to exhaustion. So young. Yeah, sorry to bother you while you're taking a break, but can you tell me if it's possible to add a stroke to this part of the magic circle? That. A small magic circle appeared on Min Chae-young's open palm. It was a basic magic circle consisting of only 4 strokes. Currently, Min Chai-young was learning magic from Sesha so that she could at least protect herself if she should fall in danger. Moreover, Min Chai-young was deeply interested in magic. During her lifetime, her family's circumstances were not so good, so she was not able to study very effectively, but the situation was completely different now. Additionally, studying magic felt like she was growing wings that freed her from oppression while giving her true freedom. Everything she learned was interesting and new. Really, she has talent. Perhaps it has to do with her star fragment or whatever it is she has. After giving her explanation, Sesha smiled softly as she saw Min Chai-young's eyes twinkling. Though Chai-young was only at the level of creating simple magic circles, it was still absurd that someone who had only studied magic for a week was able to accomplish so much. To this extent, Min Chai-young exemplified excellent in her understanding, insight, and memorization of magic. Even Min Chai-young herself was surprised by her rapid development. When she was alive, Min Chai-young felt that she was not very bright. Sesha could vaguely guess the reason behind why Chai-young felt this way. On another note, Sesha was feeling a sense of crisis because of Min Chai-young, whose potential had only been partially revealed. When Sesha occasionally explained the basics of magic, Chai-young often threw out sharp questions that challenged Sesha. It was as if Chai-young knew what parts were the most important. Sesha was often surprised by Chai-young's pointed questions. If things go on like this, I'll reach the end of my knowledge soon. That can't happen. I need to study up and not get overtaken. Thanks to this, Sesha was motivated to learn and practice magic more, which she had been lazy about previously. They became well-intentioned competitors. In the case of this stroke, it goes through the central circuit, right? Depending on the inclination of the stroke, there is a slight difference in function in terms of function. While Sesha was giving her explanation, what's going on? Sesha blinked after seeing that the magic circle was not budging. It was not just the magic circle. All the mana around them, the natural mana and the flow of the mana stream all stopped. It was as if the mana was being held back by someone. At that moment, ring, connecting, a message that Sesha was all too familiar with popped up in her mind. This was a system message. The system that Yi and Wu had shut down began to operate once more. Why was the system suddenly becoming operational? Open corner bracket S so young. Something strange is happening. Sesha urgently looked back at Min Chai-young. A different message was floating in front of Min Chai-young. New registrant found. Data is registered. Loading. Please wait a moment. Since this development was completely unexpected, Sesha could not help but be caught off guard. Connection complete. The server is opening. The backed up player data has been confirmed. The system will restart. Then, as soon as the message that her connection was complete popped up, Sesha jumped up as a thought passed by her mind. Chai-young, wait here for a second. Open corner bracket so young. Min Chai-young was startled, wondering what was going on, so she called out to Sesha, but Sesha had already left the room and was heading downstairs. And, at the place she ran down to, Sesha saw the face of the person who she longed to see. Uncle. Yi and Wu waved as he happily looked upon Sesha. He was carrying something in his arms. It seemed to be a present for Sesha. However, for Sesha, there was something more time-sensitive and important that she needed to convey to her uncle. Please do something about Laplace. Side Story Chapter 41 The Third Zone 1. Why's that guy suddenly coming out here? Jung-woo dropped the book he was reading in surprise and jumped up. He had finally found a clue to Yi and Wu's whereabouts. However, he questioned why he had appeared so late. The time gap was too wide. There was naturally a time difference in multiple universes and parallel universes, but there were limits to that difference. From when Yi and Wu appeared at the original world line number 0, there was a difference from when he learned of the dismantling of the first star, the Martial King Naiu. There should be around 10,000 years in between. That was enough time for thousands of the beings who called themselves stars to be created. However, the problem was where, while all these beings were created, Jung-woo hadn't sensed anything at all. Aside from being Deus Ex Machina, an omniscient being who ruled and controlled all the cogs known as the worlds, universes, and laws, he was also a bookkeeper and librarian who organized and protected all the records produced by the cogs. Jung-woo had magnified the trait he received from his mother, Quirinail, and synchronized it with the laws of the world. It was not a stretch to say Cha Jung-woo was literally the laws of causality. He was also proud of his position, and he was certain he'd upheld all the duties required of him. However, at this moment, Jung-woo asked himself, was I really doing a proper job? Was I observing all the businesses of the world? Did I miss anything? Did I slack because I was busy? Did I not properly look into things that required a second look because I was out of it? Is it too late to fix my mistakes? That's enough. Cha Jung-woo suddenly heard a voice as he was wallowing around in shame. He quickly collected himself. The heavenly demon was watching him. The aura exuded by the heavenly demon had forced his shaking soul to get a grip. The heavenly demon could know anything he wanted, including the thoughts and feelings of mortals, transcendents, and even other emperors. The only one he wasn't able to watch was the Black King, who stood on equal ground to him. The heavenly demon had jolted Jung-woo awake from being swallowed by the thoughts of what it was he had missed. I guess I went overboard. Jung-woo smiled wryly at Shannon and Nocturne, who were looking at him with concern. The heavenly demon crossed his arms and spoke in a standoffish tone. It's not your fault, so don't worry. Technically, I was the slacker. What do you mean? The heavenly demon scratched his temples as he stalled for time. It didn't seem like it was because the situation was difficult to explain. Rather, he seemed to be uncomfortable at having to reveal something he'd kept hidden. Open hollow corner bracket man, if you know something, stop hiding it in. He, I'm just saying, you don't have to frown like that. You'll only get wrinkles. He, is there anything you need? When the heavenly demon raised a fist, Shannon bowed and rubbed his hands together. His forehead was going to touch the floor at this rate, and the heavenly demon looked at him with disbelief. Cha Jung-woo's silent gaze continued to demand an answer from the heavenly demon, and the heavenly demon sighed. He spoke directly to Jung-woo. The knowledge in this library, you know what, Gnosis, is, right? You taught me that it's the records created from what the many beings and their souls see and understand. Right, mortals, transcendence, gods, demons, dragons, giants, any being that has a soul, is able to learn knowledge. They can gain enlightenment and twist the already existing laws to create new laws. And all these are only possible where light reaches. Light wasn't a simple matter. It made up the world and was always expanding. Its speed raced forward, faster than anything else, to establish time and history. Also, because it expanded the universe, it was the most necessary and basic material for creation. The creation of the universe and the world was still in progress. Space wasn't fixed, it continued to expand and create new planets and birth civilizations. Naturally, the more the civilization, the more transcendents were born. Law was established where light reached, and universes were made. Moreover, the beings born in this area could only see where the light had reached. They could interpret the laws and learn knowledge from them. Like this, civilizations advanced, and more Gnosis appeared in the library. That was what the phrase, light is knowledge, meant. Light was already stretching, the universe expanded, and Gnosis was steadily stacked up. There was no concept of completion. It was a never-ending process. That was this universe's absolute truth, and this was what the heavenly demon was speaking about. That light is me, so I become stronger even when I'm doing nothing. The greater the universe expands, the wider the territory of light becomes. In the past, it was occasionally cut off when the Black King and I fought over the wheels and dreams, but I don't have to worry about that anymore. Sir, yes, well, I understand you admire me, but you don't need to. Please get to the point. The heavenly demon looked dumbfounded. No one in this world spoke to him like that. Crunch. Belatedly, he realized what he'd just heard and he gritted his teeth. You punk, you're exactly like your twin. Because we're twins, I should set a day and beat you up. Then I'm going to quit. Damn it, if Jung-woo quit, the job would go back to the heavenly demon again, and the heavenly demon had resolved that such a thing should never happen. He knew better than anyone how hard the labor was. He had barely rid himself of the job to have some free time, but Jung-woo quitting. Quitting, over his dead body. Okay, I'll tell you, geez. The heavenly demon was put in the position of a powerless employer being bullied by a wicked employee. He quickly got to the point. He ignored how Shannon was looking at Cha Jung-woo with admiring eyes. Everyone who associated with Yi and Woo had terrible personalities anyway. The heavenly demon asked, so, then what do you think happens where it doesn't reach? It's where creation doesn't happen, isn't it? That's where the concepts of day and night came from. Jung-woo didn't understand what the heavenly demon was getting at. The 8 gods of disorder and other otherworld gods were classified into night Nox because their territories didn't receive any light, and their history wasn't recorded in the Chang'an library. It was impossible to observe them in the first place. Even the heavenly demon, who was omniscient and omnipotent in the territory of De Eros, didn't have a way to know much about them. Still, Jungwoo wasn't worried. Yi and Wu had full control over the territory of night. But just then, the heavenly demon grinned mischievously and asked, "What if there's a third zone that's neither day nor night?" Jungwoo stiffened, as did Shannon and Nocturne. They didn't understand. They had never heard of such a thing before. When light and darkness didn't exist yet, and only chaos reigned, the universe was only made up of the dream of the Black King, the being the creatures of the night call, dim-witted father. This was the history before the beginning, before the first wheel and dream even began. Now, the heavenly demon was likely the only being to know this story. In the middle of a dream, a mysterious crack appeared, and when that became bigger, Pengu was born. The creation of the universe began as the egg of chaos cracked and light appeared. The heavenly demon's eyes darkened as he continued. The light released from the cracked egg became day, and the territories that weren't affected by this were called night. I was lucky to take that day in my hands, and I continued to fight the Black King, who wanted to repeat the night. Jungwoo was familiar with this much. The heavenly demon absorbed the Pengu who was born from the egg of chaos and rose to his current position. His power to stand against the Black King originated from there. However, no one worried about the cracked eggshell. Jungwoo started to see what the heavenly demon was speaking about. Really, no one had the mind to. I was busy beating up the beings of night to make the weekday powerful, and the Black King didn't care because he was too busy snoring. Quote, "It was too late when I realized creatures that didn't belong to either day or night were entering the world's backend, and they had already become the foundation of idea." The heavenly demon looked frustrated. It had become a zone with entirely different compositions and laws to the extent that it was impossible to observe or interfere with it. It's a paradoxical zone that can exist theoretically but doesn't really exist. For one to exist, two conditions had to be met. 1, it had to have a soul, and 2, it had to belong to either day or night. Only then could the being move freely. It was impossible for a being to exist away from the worlds of the Black King and the heavenly demon. Souls could not take place. Even if something did exist, it was only a shell, and even if there was some truth, they were all lies. It didn't exist in the first place. That was why it was a paradox. A chaos more chaotic than chaos itself. Even I don't know what exists there. I wasn't interested, and there was no reason for me to be. So for creatures to have evaded the eyes of me, you, and Yi and Wu, this is the first thing that comes to mind. That's the only place that's hidden from our eyes. What? Jungwoo unwittingly exclaimed in shock a while later. His expression was one of bitterness. I thought I was starting to understand now, but this world is still filled with things I don't know. It's arrogant to think you know something. We're free from it, but as long as the universe and world exist, it'll continue to change. There are still things I don't know too. No one knows what the eggshell of chaos that's at the bottom of idea looks like. Something I don't know about could pop up suddenly anytime anywhere. The sentence echoed in Jungwoo's head. Something I don't know about could pop up suddenly anytime anywhere. Jungwoo felt like his vision widened. Once again, he was able to realize this world was really full of mysteries. If you think about it that way, the puzzle becomes even greater, trying to figure out where the Black King, who existed prior to the creation of the universe, came from. Right, you'll never get anything done if you dig too deeply into things. In Buddhism, there was a concept of 3,000 realms. Countless worlds were tied together to become 1,000 realms, those realms were doubled to become 2,000 realms, and another added became 3,000 realms. This idea explained that countless concepts could continue to expand infinitely. The world that I know might just be limited to these 3,000 realms. Right now, to Jungwoo, everything was confusing. Yi and Wu could have gone to find the star fragment there, so let's continue to see. Jungwoo nodded. Anyhow, the heavenly demon felt slightly more relieved now, but his gaze focused on the books was sharp. Kronos, that bastard, didn't recognize me when I was right in front of him. Sun Jae-won, Sun Ji-ho, and Seo Eun-young, the heavenly demon definitely knew what these names were. Just you wait. He wasn't angry because he was venting his anger from Jungwoo, who threatened to quit, to his father. Absolutely not.